Hello, I want to tell you something that may shake you. The world you think you live in is not the real world. It is a world made by your mind, a world built from fear, memory, imagination, and old wounds. And as long as you remain plugged into this mental matrix, you will keep living the same day again and again, never touching the truth of life. But the moment you step out, even for a breath, everything changes, your vision clears, your heart softens, and you begin to see life as it truly is, not as your mind has painted it. If you are ready to shatter the illusion and face the truth, press the like button now. By doing so, you signal to the universe and to yourself that you are awake and listening. In this talk, I will show you how the mental matrix forms, how it hides itself, and how it quietly shapes your entire experience of life. You will understand why you feel stuck, why your thoughts feel repetitive, why fear returns again and again, and you will learn how to step out of this mental prison and return to the living world, the world of awareness, silence, presence, freedom. You will discover simple openings through which the real world begins to shine, and you will see how easy it can be to unplug from the illusions that once felt impossible to escape. All your life you have been told what to think, how to behave, who to become. Your mind has been shaped by thousands of voices that are not your own. And slowly you became lost in that noise. You forgot the quiet space inside you. You forgot the clarity that comes when you see without judgment. You forgot that the world is not what your mind says. It is something far more mysterious, more open, more alive. Most people live in a dream created by their conditioning. They fight shadows, they fear illusions, they react to thoughts that have nothing to do with reality. And because this dream feels normal, they never question it. But once you begin to question the dream begins to dissolve. In this time together, we will walk through the architecture of the mental matrix, the habits, the beliefs, the memories, the fears that shape your inner world. I will show you how this invisible structure controls your thoughts, your emotions, your choices. You will learn how to see it, how to step outside it, and how to return to the world as it truly is, silent, open, free. Before we go deeper, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. This is not just a channel, it is a gathering of seekers. Join us so you do not walk this path alone. We will explore simple openings, simple practices, simple shifts that allow you to unplug effortlessly. And somewhere along the way, something inside you will begin to loosen, the grip of the mind will soften. A little space will appear, and in that space you will taste freedom. Real freedom, not the kind the mind talks about, but the kind the soul remembers. Listen closely now, because once you unplug from the mental matrix, even for a moment, you will never fall asleep in the same way again. As we enter this first doorway together, I want you to see something so simple, so obvious, that the mind has learned to hide it from you. What I am about to share might seem almost too simple, yet it is the very root of the mental matrix that keeps you trapped. Here it is. You are not living in reality, you are living in a story. Every moment of your life, the mind is narrating, interpreting, judging, adding meaning, creating a commentary that overlays the raw experience of existence like a thick fog resting over a clear lake. And because this narration has been happening since the day you were born, you do not notice it anymore. You confuse the story with life itself, the commentary with the actual moment. But once you see the storyteller, Once you witness the mind spinning its endless tales, the illusion begins to crack, and a small gap opens through which the real world shines. Here's something most people completely miss. The mind does not simply describe reality, it replaces it. Instead of seeing what is, you see what your mind says about what is. Instead of hearing a sound, you hear the judgment about the sound. Instead of meeting a person, you meet your thoughts about the person. Thought overlays reality like a film over glass, tinting everything with old colors, old fears, old memories. And because the glass has been there so long, you think the tint is natural. You think life is heavy because the film is heavy. You think life is dark because the film is dark. But life has never been the problem. The film is the problem. The story is the problem. Imagine a monk walking in the dark, seeing a long shape curled in the path. Immediately his mind shouts, "Snake!" Fear rises, breath tightens, muscles contract, he runs trembling. But when the sun rises, he returns and sees the truth. It was only a rope, nothing dangerous, nothing threatening. The fear he experienced was real, but the cause of the fear was imaginary. This is how the mind works. You suffer from things that do not exist. You fight enemies that were never there. You carry the weight of illusions, believing them to be solid. And because the fear feels real, you never question the story that produced it. Let me take this deeper. The mind interprets more than it observes. It reacts more than it receives. It assumes more than it knows. 90% of your suffering comes not from what life gives you, but from what your mind adds to it. A word becomes an insult. A glance becomes a rejection. A delay becomes a disaster. A challenge becomes a threat. And think of how quickly the story forms, faster than lightning, without pause, without awareness. The matrix is built not from the world, but from the mind's reflex to label everything it touches. What I want you to see is that you almost never meet reality directly. You meet your own commentary. You meet the storyteller inside. You meet the narrator who never stops speaking. And because you have been hypnotized by this constant narration, you mistake the voice for your own. You believe the story. You become the character in the story. You suffer the fate of the story. But the moment you take a single step back, the moment you see the storyteller, instead of being the story, something shifts quietly, profoundly. A small distance appears between you and the mind, and in that distance you begin to taste freedom. Now, why does this matter? Because the moment you see this story as a story, the illusion loses power. You do not have to fight the mind. You do not have to silence it. You simply have to recognize it. Awareness breaks the spell. Awareness unplugs the wires that connect you to the matrix. Awareness shows you that you are not the thought. You are the space in which the thought appears. And once this truth begins to settle in your being, once it becomes not a belief but a felt experience, the grip of the mind loosens. The story no longer controls you. You begin to see life without the filters. You begin to see reality as it is, simple, silent, open. If these words are penetrating your heart, consider becoming a member of this channel. Click the join button. By supporting this work, you help keep this flame of awareness burning for yourself and for others. Now that you have begun to see this storyteller, this restless mind that covers reality with its projections, we must turn to the deeper roots of the mental matrix. because the mind does not invent its stories from nothing. What I am about to show you may feel like a gentle shock, a quiet earthquake inside your understanding of yourself. The thoughts you call mine are not yours. The beliefs you defend are not yours. The fears you carry are not yours. Almost everything inside you was placed there by others long before you had the awareness to choose. Your parents, your teachers, your society, your religion, your past, they all installed the program, and the program became your personality. You think you built your identity, but in truth your identity was constructed for you. This is why the matrix feels inescapable, because you believe it is you. Let us go slowly, because this is not blame, it is illumination. When you were a child, you absorbed everything without any filter. You absorbed fear from the eyes of the people around you. You absorbed insecurity from their trembling voices. You absorbed shame from their silence. You absorbed their rules, their expectations, their limitations. A child does not question, it believes. A child does not resist, it receives. So the conditioning entered you like water enters soil, quietly, invisibly shaping the roots of your being before you even knew you had roots. And by the time you grew old enough to question the world inside you was already built. Here's something most people never see. Childhood fears become adult boundaries. The small child who was told to stay quiet grows into an adult afraid to speak. The child who was punished for making mistakes grows into an adult terrified of taking risks. The child who learned that love must be earned becomes the adult who spends their entire life performing, pleasing, chasing approval. And because these patterns began before your memory, you mistake them for your nature. You think this is just who I am, but it is not who you are. It is who you were taught to be. Imagine a computer given a set of programs at birth. It runs those programs without question. It doesn't ask whether the software is outdated, whether it is useful, whether it is true. It simply obeys. And if the software is full of errors, the machine suffers not because something is wrong with the hardware, but because the program is corrupted. You are not the program, you are the awareness that can see the program. But until you see it, you run it as if it were your essence. Let me take you deeper. Social rules become inner prisons. Society teaches you how to behave, how to think, what to fear, what to desire, what to hide, what to show, what to believe about yourself. These teachings settle into your unconscious and become invisible walls. You may never see the walls, but you feel them every time you try to step beyond them. You want to be free, yet you feel resistance. You want to live boldly, yet you shrink. You want to love fully, yet you hold back. The walls of conditioning whisper, don't go there. It's not safe. You will fail. You will be judged. Stay where you are. And because the whisper sounds like your own voice, you obey it. Consider a young eagle raised among chickens. It learns to scratch the ground, not fly. It learns to fear the sky, not embrace it. Even when its wings grow strong, it never uses them, because its conditioning has convinced it that it is earthbound. The eagle is not trapped by reality. It is trapped by belief. In the same way, you are not trapped by the world. You are trapped by the conditioning that tells you who you are allowed to be. Now here is the turning point. The opening through which freedom enters. Awareness dissolves conditioning, not effort, not willpower, not rebellion. Awareness. When you begin to see the beliefs you inherited, they loosen. When you notice the fear that is not truly yours, it begins to melt. When you recognize the voices of your past speaking through your present, they lose their authority. Conditioning survives only in darkness. When you bring it into the light, it evaporates. This next part changed everything for me. You do not have to destroy your conditioning. You simply have to stop unconsciously identifying with it. When you see it, you are no longer inside it, and when you are no longer inside it, the walls begin to fall slowly, gently, silently. You begin to unplug not from life, but from the false version of life created by others. And now that you understand how the walls of your mental prison were built, the next question naturally arises. If the cage is so thin, so artificial, so fragile, why do you stay inside it? What force keeps you from walking out of the open door? To answer that, we must meet the most cunning architect of the matrix, the ego. As we step deeper into this exploration, we come face to face with the most cunning force inside the mental matrix, the ego. And what I am about to say may sound strange at first, but if you allow it to settle in you, if you listen not only with your ears, but with the quiet space of your being, you will recognize it as profoundly true. The ego needs problems to survive. It feeds on them. It grows through them. It maintains its identity by constantly generating new problems, new fears, new conflicts. Without problems, the ego begins to dissolve like a shadow in sunlight. And this is why you stay trapped in the mental matrix, because the ego does not want freedom. The ego wants continuity, it wants drama, it wants something to hold on to, even if what it holds is suffering. If you are finding value in this transmission, please consider leaving a super thanks. Your gratitude helps this message reach those who are still struggling in the darkness of the ego. Let me take you slowly into this. The ego is not a thing, not an entity, not a real someone inside you. It is simply a collection of thoughts repeating themselves, a pattern, a habit. But it behaves as if it is alive, as if it must defend itself at all costs. Imagine a small fire in the woods, shaky and fragile. If you stop feeding it, it dies. So it constantly demands wood. It doesn't care whether the wood is dry or rotten. It doesn't care whether the wood is harmful to the forest. It simply wants fuel. Your problems, real or imagined, are the wood that keeps the ego burning. Here's something most people completely miss. When the mind has nothing to worry about, it becomes uneasy. It feels lost. It feels empty. It begins searching for something, anything to hold on to. So it picks up a small concern and magnifies it. It invents a fear. It replays an old memory. It projects a worst-case future. Why? Because in the absence of problems, the ego has no purpose. And a purposeless ego is a dying ego. So it ensures you remain busy, distracted, entangled, always fighting something, always fixing something, always running from something. The ego loves activity. Awareness loves stillness. The ego loves noise. Awareness loves silence. And silence is the death of the ego. Think of this. Have you ever solved a problem and felt a moment of relief, only for your mind to immediately find another issue to worry about? This is not coincidence. This is the ego's survival instinct. It cannot allow you to enter deep peace for too long. because in that peace you would begin to see the illusion. You would begin to sense the presence beneath thought. You would begin to taste freedom. And freedom is the one thing the ego cannot coexist with. Let me share a small story. A man once came to me overwhelmed by worry. Every day his mind created storms. Every night he lay awake imagining disasters. He believed life was attacking him. I asked him to sit with me for a few minutes in silence. Within that silence, his face softened, his breath slowed, the tension in his shoulders melted. For the first time, he tasted a moment without problems, but immediately fear arose. He opened his eyes and said, "Oh, something feels wrong. I don't feel like myself." And I told him exactly, "You are experiencing yourself without the ego, and because the ego has become your false identity, peace feels unfamiliar." You are afraid of freedom. This is why most people cling to their problems even as they say they want to solve them. Their problems give them a sense of self. A victim identity is still an identity. A stressed identity is still an identity. A worried identity is still an identity. Without these identities, the ego doesn't know who it is. And so it keeps feeding you stories, analyses, conflicts, judgments, comparisons, all to keep you entangled in its web. The ego wants motion, not resolution. It thrives on unfinished business. It thrives on tension. A solved life is a quiet life, and the ego does not know how to live in quiet. Now, why does this matter for unplugging from the mental matrix? Because until you see this mechanism, you will keep believing that your suffering is caused by life. You will keep thinking something outside you needs to change. But the moment you see that the ego itself is manufacturing the suffering, the moment you recognize the inner fire that keeps demanding fuel, something extraordinary happens. The fire begins to weaken, not because you fight it, but because you stop feeding it. Awareness is the water that extinguishes ego's flames, and this next part is essential. Problems dissolve the moment you stop identifying with them. The ego collapses the moment you stop believing its voice. You don't have to fix the mind, you only have to see it. Seeing breaks the spell. Seeing is liberation. Now that we have exposed this first strategy of the ego, we must move to the next one even more subtle, one that keeps you trapped in the matrix even when everything outside is peaceful. The ego's fear of silence, and why silence is the most dangerous thing you can offer your mind. Now we step into one of the most delicate, most powerful truths about the ego, a truth that once seen explains almost every form of inner turmoil. What I am about to share may sound simple, but it reveals the very heart of the matrix. The ego is terrified of silence, not uncomfortable with it, not uncertain about it, terrified, because silence is the one force that exposes the ego's illusion completely. Silence is the mirror in which the ego cannot find itself. And when the ego cannot find itself, it begins to tremble, to panic, to tighten, to create noise, thoughts, memories, worries, fantasies, anything to avoid falling into the great emptiness that silence reveals. Let me take you slowly into this. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. Silence is the presence of yourself. When the world around you becomes quiet, when the mind begins to slow, when there is nothing left to distract you or entertain you or provoke you, you begin to face the one thing the ego cannot tolerate: pure awareness. Awareness without content. Awareness that does not need identification. Awareness that exists before the mind, beneath the mind, beyond the mind. Awareness in its naked form is freedom, and freedom is death to the ego. Here's something most people never understand. The ego thrives on noise because noise prevents you from meeting yourself. As long as your head is filled with thoughts, as long as your life is filled with activity, as long as you are constantly moving toward the next thing, the ego knows it can survive. It hides in the movement, it hides in the commentary, it hides in the distractions you use to avoid being alone with your own consciousness. That is why silence feels threatening. At first it begins to pull the mask away, and without the mask, the ego has no face. Imagine a seeker sitting alone in a small, quiet room for the first time. No phone, no music, no conversation, no tasks, only themselves. Within moments, the mind begins to stir. Thoughts arise, loud, intrusive, restless. Memories appear, regrets surface, fantasies shimmer. The mind does everything it can to fill the silence, and if the seeker persists, something else happens. Fear, a deep, unexplainable fear. What is happening to me? Why do I feel this unease? That fear is not from the silence itself. It is from the ego sensing its own dissolution. The ego mistakes silence for danger because silence erases everything it has built. In silence, the ego cannot survive. Let me give you an image. Imagine a lake that is constantly stormy, winds whipping the surface into waves. You look at the water and think, this is the lake, but it is not. It is only the surface. Beneath the waves lies a depth you never see. In the same way, the ego keeps your mind stormy so that you never discover the depth beneath the silent presence that has been waiting for you since the day you were born. When the wind of thought stops, the lake becomes still. And when the lake becomes still, it becomes clear. And when it becomes clear, it reflects the sky. Silence is the stillness where you begin to see your true reflection. Now, why is this important for unplugging from the mental matrix? Because silence is the matrix breaker. All the psychological structures, all the illusions, all the stories of the mind, they depend on constant inner noise to stay alive. The moment you enter silence, even for a breath, the matrix begins to crack. The stories weaken, the beliefs loosen, the identity softens. In silence, you discover that thoughts are just thoughts, not truths. You discover that fear is just sensation, not destiny. You discover that the world you built in your mind is made of smoke, and silence is the breeze that clears it. Let me show you how this works. When you sit in silence without trying to control anything, without trying to achieve enlightenment, without trying to meditate correctly, simply allowing yourself to be, the mind becomes visible. Every thought that arises stands out clearly like a bird flying across an empty sky. You begin to see the patterns, you begin to see the repetition, and most importantly, you begin to see that you are the witness, not the thinker. This witnessing is unplugging, not effort, not fight, witnessing. A seeker once told me he feared silence because it made him feel like he was disappearing. I smiled and said, only the false disappears in silence. What is real remains. Silence does not take anything from you. It reveals what was never you to begin with. The ego is terrified of silence because silence shows you your true nature. Something vast, open, spacious, untouchable by fear, untouched by thought. And this brings us to the next stage of our journey. Once the ego's strategies are exposed, its addiction to problems, its fear of silence, a new possibility opens. The possibility of seeing the mind without becoming the mind, the possibility of witnessing thoughts instead of drowning in them. This is the beginning of true freedom. This is the beginning of unplugging. Now that you have seen how the ego survives by creating problems and how it trembles before silence, we can finally enter the doorway through which real freedom begins, the art of watching the mind without joining it. If you want to read more about this art of witnessing, check the link in the description for our ebooks. They are maps for your journey into silence. And what I am about to share with you is perhaps the most transformative insight a human being can ever discover. The most simple and yet the most revolutionary. You are not the mind, you have a mind. Yes, just as you have hands or feet, but you are not it. You are the space in which the mind appears. You are the witness, the watcher, the awareness that sees thoughts come in and go in like clouds drifting across an endless sky. This next part changed everything for me. The moment you stop being the thought and begin watching the thought, the matrix begins to dissolve. The spell breaks, the illusion weakens. A great clarity emerges softly, silently, like dawn arriving without effort. Let us move slowly into this truth, because it is subtle. When a thought arises in you, fear, anger, memory, judgment, what happens immediately? You become entangled with it. You don't just witness the fear, you become the fear. You don't just observe the anger, you become the anger. You don't simply see the memory, you disappear into it, losing your presence, losing your awareness, losing yourself. In that moment, the thought becomes the puppeteer and you become the puppet. The matrix is not the thought itself. The matrix is your unconscious identification with the thought. You mistake the passing cloud for the sky itself. Here's something most people never realize. A thought has no power unless you give it power. A thought has no weight unless you carry it. A thought has no reality unless you believe it. Thoughts are like actors on a stage, constantly performing, constantly shifting roles. One moment they play the villain, another moment the victim, another moment the hero, and you sit in the audience hypnotized, forgetting that you are not part of the drama. You simply forgot you are the watcher. Imagine a man walking along a mountain path. Suddenly a cloud covers the sun, and he panics. The sun is gone, the light is gone, but a wise shepherd laughs and says, "The sun has not gone anywhere. You are simply standing beneath a cloud." Thoughts are clouds. Awareness is the sun. Thoughts come and go, awareness remains. The moment you remember this, the mind loses its grip over you. Let me take this deeper. When you begin watching the mind, you create a small distance, a gap, a space between yourself and your thoughts. In that space, clarity is born. In that space, freedom appears. In that space, the thought cannot dominate you. It becomes a passing event, not a prison. This distance is the beginning of awakening. The mind cannot deceive you when you're watching it. Just as a thief becomes powerless when someone is observing him, the ego becomes quiet when the witness is present. A man once came to me filled with anger. He said, "Oh, I cannot control it. It explodes. It destroys my peace." I told him, "Do not try to control it. Simply watch it." He looked confused, but he tried. The next time anger arose, instead of becoming the anger, he watched it rise like a storm forming on the horizon. He watched the heat in his chest, the tension in his jaw, the rapid beating of his heart, and something miraculous happened. Instead of exploding, the anger dissolved. not because he suppressed it, but because he observed it. Watching transforms the watcher, watching dissolves the illusion, watching is unplugging. This is the why behind the law. Now the what? Watching means awareness without judgment. It means seeing the thought without calling it good or bad, without labeling it as yours or not yours, without trying to change it, resist it, or hold on to it. Watching is simple presence, silent, open, relaxed. The moment judgment enters, you are back in the matrix. The moment you try to control the mind, you are identified with it again. But when you watch, you step out of the story, you step out of the ego, you step out of the machinery that has trapped you for your entire life. When you see what others don't, life becomes dangerous. And I don't mean danger from the world outside. I mean danger from the people around you, the ones who feel afraid when you see too deeply, too clearly, too truthfully, because the moment you see, their sleep is shaken. You must understand this dynamic, or you will think you are going crazy. You will think there is a flaw in your being, when in reality the only thing happening is that you are waking up in a dormitory where everyone else is determined to stay asleep. You know the feeling. You see something that others miss, a lie, a mask, a game, a truth. And instead of thanking you, people step away. They get tense. They get defensive. They say you are too much, or too honest, or too sensitive. But I tell you, you are not too much. You are simply awake, and this world has always feared the awake ones. Not because the awake do harm, but because their seeing breaks illusions that others cling to for safety. If you have ever felt this specific type of rejection, the rejection that comes from being too real, share this video with a friend who understands. Help us build a community where clarity is celebrated, not feared. I am not here to make you blind again. I am here to help you walk with clarity without losing peace, to help you see without suffering. Because let us be honest, the beginning of this journey feels like a burden. When your eyes open, you suddenly become aware of things you cannot unsee. Small lies, small games, small masks, small pains hiding behind smiles. Most people, without knowing, live behind these curtains of illusion. They call it comfort. They call it normal. They call it life. And you too once lived there in that soft fog where everything looked familiar, predictable, safe. But when the fog lifts, it is as if a bright light enters your eyes, a light so strong that your whole being contracts. This is the first danger. Sensitivity. When you see deeply, you feel deeply. You pick up the pain others avoid. You sense the dishonesty behind words, the insecurity behind anger, the longing behind cruelty. You see the wound inside another person before they even know it's there. And this makes you feel alone because you are sensing a world beneath the world, a world no one talks about. Imagine a small child in a family where everyone pretends everything is fine. They laugh, they smile, they act like all is well, but the child feels something. A tension in the air, a coldness between the parents, a heaviness in the silence. The adults don't see it because they've trained themselves not to. The child sees it without wanting to. That is the burden of awareness. You do not choose to see. Seeing happens to you, and once it happens, you can never go back to pretending. But here is something beautiful hiding beneath the heaviness. This sensitivity is not a weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. When your eyes hurt from the light, it means the light has entered. When your heart aches from seeing too much, it means your heart is alive. And this early pain is not a sign that you should close your eyes again. It is a sign that your inner vision is waking up, stretching, adjusting. I'm telling you this so you don't mistake the first discomfort for a wrong path. The beginning of awareness is always uncomfortable. Before clarity becomes peace, it is fire. Before understanding becomes strength, it unsettles. Before truth becomes beauty, it breaks the shell around your eyes. And once you feel this tension inside yourself, once you begin to see more than others want to see, a new challenge begins, one that does not come from you but from the world around you. Because the moment you see too much, others begin to see that you see, and that brings its own danger. This is where the second shock comes. You think people will welcome your clarity. You think they will feel helped by your insight. You think they will feel safe around your understanding. But what I'm about to tell you may surprise you. Most people don't want to be seen. They want to be understood only at the level they allow, only at the depth that protects their illusions, only at the distance that keeps their masks intact. And when you look past that mask, even with love, even with innocence, even without speaking, it can shake their entire world. Your presence itself becomes a mirror. And when someone who is still asleep stands before a mirror held by an awake person, they don't see your clarity. They see their own fear. They see the cracks in their own stories, the lies they have told themselves to feel safe, the games they have played so long that they now call them truth. And your presence, without effort, without intention, without even wanting to, shines a light on these cracks. This is why people become uncomfortable. This is why they step back. If this speaks to your soul, if you have felt this isolation, support the channel with a super thanks. It is a way to say, I am here and I am awake. Let me take you into a very human example. Imagine a group of friends laughing, gossiping, complaining. Everyone is enjoying the drama because it keeps the mind busy and avoids the deeper emptiness inside. But you, because you see, because your heart has begun to awaken, suddenly notice the falseness in the laughter. You feel the insecurity behind the jokes, the loneliness hidden in their noise, and for a moment your eyes soften. You don't judge them. You don't say a word. You simply see, and in that seeing, something subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Someone becomes uneasy. Someone feels exposed. Someone thinks, why are you so quiet? Why aren't you like us? They don't know what they are reacting to. They are reacting to the mirror your awareness has created. It is like the story of the child who pointed at the emperor and said, he has no clothes. The emperor wasn't angry because the child lied. He was angry because the child saw. This is the reaction of the world to those who see. They fear you not because you are dangerous, but because your clarity reveals their nakedness. And when people feel revealed before they are ready, they will resist, they will deny, they will defend, they will push you away. They do not push you, they push the reflection they cannot bear to meet. You may notice how people become defensive around you even when you speak with kindness. They may accuse you of being too intense, too serious, too honest, too sensitive. But remember this, these accusations are not about you. They are about the discomfort truth creates in someone who has not yet learned to face themselves. When people say you are too much, they are really saying, I am not ready to see what you see. I am not ready to be seen the way you see. Social groups, friendships, even families operate through shared illusions, small agreements, small stories, small lies that keep everyone comfortable. When one person wakes up inside that structure, everything shifts. You disturb the pattern just by being present. You bring air into a room where windows have been closed for years, and fresh air, even though it brings life, first brings discomfort. Stale rooms do not welcome wind. But I don't want you to misunderstand this. The world's resistance to your clarity is not rejection, it is fear. And fear is always a sign that something real has touched the surface. When a person backs away from your insight, it means you have reached a place in them they have avoided all their life. If they ever grow, if they ever awaken, if they ever seek truth, they will remember you not with anger but with gratitude. For now they protect themselves the only way they know, by stepping back from the light. This is why the seer often becomes the outsider. Not because they are strange, but because they no longer fit into the unconscious rhythm of the group. Your presence creates a different vibration, a different pace, a different depth. And those who live on the surface cannot breathe in that depth yet. They will join you only when their own heart calls them to. But don't let this frighten you. Don't shrink your seeing to make others comfortable. Don't dim your light to match their darkness. The discomfort others feel is not your fault. It is the first stirring of their own awakening, even if they don't realize it yet. And this reaction from the world leads you to a deeper struggle, one not created by people, but by the conflict inside your own being, where your seeing meets the world's sleep. And you must learn how to live between these two worlds without losing your center. When you see what others don't, when your eyes open and your heart begins to feel the world without its masks, a deep struggle begins inside you. Not the struggle with others, but the struggle with yourself. This is the moment where awakening becomes heavy, where silence becomes loud, where clarity becomes both a blessing and a burden. I want to take you slowly into this inner space, because unless you understand what happens here, you will think something is wrong with you. In truth, nothing is wrong. You're simply waking up in a world that still sleeps. And this creates a tension inside your being that you must learn to hold with gentleness. You see, once you begin to see truth, you can no longer lie to yourself. That is the first conflict. The world asks you to pretend, asks you to play along, asks you to agree with things you do not feel, asks you to follow rules that make no sense to your heart. Before you awakened, you could do it easily. You could join the noise. You could laugh at what wasn't funny. You could say yes when your whole body wanted to say no. But now something inside you refuses. And this refusal, this inner honesty, begins to clash with the outer world that still moves in the old rhythm. You become divided, one part pulled outward by habit, by society, by expectation, and another part pulled inward by truth, by silence, by awareness. This is why many who see deeply feel a loneliness that cannot be explained. You can be in a room full of people and still feel far away, not because you are disconnected, but because you have begun to live at a different depth. They speak from the surface, you hear from the center. They talk in noise. You listen in silence. They react without awareness. You feel the roots of every emotion. And this difference creates a gap, a space, a distance that is not your choice. It is simply the nature of awakening. Imagine you're in a busy marketplace where everyone is shouting, bargaining, rushing. You stand there and suddenly something quiet rises within you. A longing for stillness, a need for depth. You want to step away from the noise, to breathe, to listen, to feel something real. But you also feel the pull of the crowd, the pull of belonging, the pull of being normal. You know you can't go back to sleep, but part of you still remembers the comfort of it. This is the inner conflict of the awake mind. The heart moves toward truth while the old self tries to hold on to familiar shadows. And this conflict becomes even stronger because once you see, you cannot unsee. You cannot force your eyes to close again. You cannot pretend that lies are truth. You cannot go back into the egg once you have grown wings. This is why I say awakening is irreversible. Once you taste freedom, even for a moment, the old prison feels tighter. Once you breathe clean air, the old atmosphere feels suffocating. But let me tell you something important. This inner conflict is not a mistake. It is the doorway. The caterpillar struggles inside the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly. The seed breaks open before the tree is born. You too must break inside before something new can arise. The mind wants comfort. The heart wants truth. And this tension stretches you until you become large enough to hold both. This is growth. This is transformation. If you are ready to embrace this transformation, to hold the tension until it becomes light, click the join button below, become a member and walk this path with those who understand the struggle of the cocoon. Yes, you will feel the desire to fit in again. Yes, you will feel the temptation to act blind again. Yes, you will feel the ache of being different. But this ache is simply the echo of your old self dying. You are shedding skins you no longer need, and the shedding always feels strange. It always feels like a tearing, like a death, like a loss. But what is dying is only the mask, not you. What is breaking is only the shell, not your being. And when you understand this, the conflict softens. You stop fighting yourself. You allow the old to fall away. You allow the new to arrive. And slowly, very slowly, the tension becomes clarity, the loneliness becomes depth, and the conflict becomes peace. Because once you accept that you cannot go back to sleep, the next question arises: how will the world relate to someone who is awake? What fears will your clarity stir in others? What shadows will be shaken by your light? And this brings us to the next truth on this journey. When your eyes open and your inner vision becomes clear, another strange and painful thing begins to happen. And I want to take you into it slowly, because this is where many seekers lose heart. This is where many feel discouraged. This is where many begin to shrink themselves to make the world comfortable again. What I am about to tell you is simple, yet it explains so many wounds you have carried in silence. The moment you awaken, you become a danger, not because you harm anyone, not because you threaten anyone, but because your very presence touches the things people have spent their whole lives hiding from. And when a person is deeply attached to their illusions, deeply attached to the stories they tell themselves, deeply attached to the masks they wear in order to survive, your seeing does something they cannot control. It exposes the cracks. People protect their illusions as if they are protecting their life. They cling to beliefs that were given to them before they could think. They cling to identities that were borrowed from others. They cling to habits that numb them just enough to keep walking. And when you see through these illusions, even silently, even gently, even lovingly, they feel threatened. They don't think it consciously. They don't say, "You see the truth in me and that scares me." No, they react with subtle distance, with discomfort, with irritation, with a sudden coldness, because your clarity reaches into places inside them they have never dared to enter. It is like walking into a room where everyone has agreed to keep the windows closed, the air is stale, but they have learned to breathe it. The smell is old, but they have forgotten it's there. The darkness is thick, but they call it peace. And then you, without effort, open a single window, a little light enters, a little fresh air moves through the room, and suddenly the people inside feel something unsettling, not because of you, but because they have lived so long in the stale air that the fresh breeze feels like a storm. Your presence becomes the window, and they do not know how to handle it. People think truth destroys them, but truth only destroys the false. Your seeing is not an attack, it is a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look at themselves without their favorite filters. So they call you dangerous, they call you rebellious, they call you strange, they call you arrogant, they call you intense. All these words are not about you. They are about the fear that arises in them when their comfortable lives begin to tremble. Let me give you something simple to feel this more clearly. Imagine a village built beside a river that slowly rises each year. A few people notice the water creeping higher, the soil becoming soft, the houses leaning slightly, but most villagers prefer not to see it. They say, it's nothing, it has always been this way. Don't make trouble. Because seeing the truth would require change, would require courage, would require leaving behind the familiar. Then one day someone finally speaks. Look, the river is rising. We must prepare. And what happens? The villagers become angry, not because the river isn't rising, but because the truth exposes their denial. They attack the one who sees not the water. This is what happens when you awaken. You disturb the denial, you disturb the sleep, you disturb the patterns that keep others comfortable. And without intending to, without speaking a single word, without doing anything at all, your clarity becomes a silent revolution. And every revolution, even a quiet one, feels threatening to those who want the world to stay exactly as it is. But I want you to understand something deeper, something softer, something that will help you walk through this world without shrinking yourself. People do not fear you. They fear the shift inside themselves that begins when they meet you. They fear the trembling they feel in their beliefs, the questioning that rises in their mind, the honesty that starts knocking on their inner door. You are not their enemy, you are their awakening in human form. And awakening is always frightening before it becomes liberating. And once you understand this, once you see that others' fear is not rejection but a sign of the truth touching them, compassion begins to grow in you. You stop taking their reactions personally. You stop shrinking your light. You stop apologizing for your clarity. You begin to walk softly, gently, with awareness, allowing others to move at their own pace, knowing that your presence will do its work, even if they are not ready to welcome it consciously. And when your compassion deepens, another realization arises, one that transforms your entire journey. The very burden that once felt heavy, the very clarity that once felt dangerous, the very seeing that once isolated you, slowly becomes your greatest strength. When the world begins to fear your clarity, when people step back because your seeing touches the places they have kept hidden, even from themselves, something important begins to happen inside you, something quiet, something steady, something powerful. For a long time, the awakening feels like a burden. It feels like a weight you must carry alone. It feels like a fire burning inside your chest with no one to share its warmth. But slowly, as you stop fighting what you see, as you stop trying to fit again into rooms that can no longer contain you, as you stop shrinking yourself to make others feel safe in their darkness, a transformation begins. The same truth that once felt heavy begins to feel like the very thing supporting you, because awareness once accepted becomes strength, not the strength of tension, not the strength of ego, not the strength of force, but the strength of stillness, a strength that doesn't shout, a strength that doesn't demand, a strength that simply stands, the strength of a mountain, the strength of a tree whose roots grow deeper than any stone, the strength of a flame that doesn't flicker no matter how hard the wind blows. Awareness becomes your backbone, your anchor, your ground. And something beautiful happens when this shift takes place. You no longer feel wounded by the reactions of others. You no longer interpret their fear as rejection. You no longer take their defensiveness personally. You begin to see the mechanics behind their behavior. You begin to understand the wound behind their resistance. You begin to recognize the child hiding inside every adult, the one who learned long ago to protect themselves from truth by covering their eyes. And instead of resentment, instead of confusion, instead of loneliness, a new feeling arises in you, compassion, not forced compassion, not moral compassion, not compassion taught by any religion, but compassion born naturally out of seeing, because when you truly see a person, you can no longer blame them for their blindness. You can no longer expect them to meet you where they have never been. You can no longer hold them responsible for the sleep they were trained to live in. You understand that everyone is doing the best they can with the light they have, and some have only a candle while you have begun to walk with the sun. This understanding gives you a new kind of freedom. You stop trying to wake others up. You stop trying to explain yourself. You stop trying to prove your clarity. You simply allow yourself to be without shrinking, without defending, without apologizing. You realize that your awakening is your path, not a requirement for anyone else. And in this acceptance, the loneliness that once felt sharp begins to soften. You feel at home inside yourself. You feel whole. You feel enough. Let me give you an image. Imagine a lighthouse standing alone on a cliff. The sea is dark. The winds are wild. The waves crash. The lighthouse cannot calm the sea. It cannot stop the storm. It cannot force the boats to navigate correctly. All it can do is shine. It shines not because the sea approves, not because the boats listen, not because the storm welcomes it. It shines because that is its nature, and in shining, it saves lives, even the lives that curse the rocks, even the lives that never see the source of the light guiding them. This is the hidden strength of the awake one. You become a lighthouse, not loud, not forceful, simply present, simply clear, simply yourself, and your presence without effort, without intention, without even speaking, becomes a guiding light for those who are ready to wake. And this is where your journey turns. What once felt like a curse becomes a gift. What once felt like a wound becomes wisdom. What once felt like a burden becomes a blessing. You begin to see that your awakening was never meant to make you weaker. It was always meant to show you your true power. The power of understanding, the power of presence, the power of seeing without judgment. But there's still more. Because once you discover this strength, once you feel the quiet force of awareness rising inside you, another truth opens before you. A deeper truth, one that takes you beyond your own awakening and into the mystery of why so many remain asleep and what it truly means to live awake in a world that prefers dreams. We will explore this vast, strange, and almost dreamlike world of the unconscious in the moments to come, because understanding the sleep of others is the final key to your own absolute freedom. But there is still more, because once you discover this strength, once you feel the quiet force of awareness rising inside you, another truth opens before you. A deeper truth, one that takes you beyond your own awakening and into the mystery of why so many remain asleep and what it truly means to live awake in a world that prefers dreams. When you begin to feel your own strength rising, when the burden of seeing becomes the quiet foundation of your being, something new becomes visible before you. The vast, strange, and almost dreamlike world of the unconscious. It is like standing on a mountain after climbing through fire and shadow. And from that height you can see the whole valley where most people live, and you suddenly understand something profound. They are not choosing darkness, they are simply asleep, and their sleep is so deep, so old, so inherited, that they do not even know they are dreaming. I want to take you into this world gently, slowly, because once you understand the nature of this sleep, all your confusion about human behavior dissolves, all your frustration about why people act the way they do softens, and a deep compassion begins to flow from you like water from an unseen spring. You have to look at the world very closely, look at the faces of people walking on the street, look at their eyes. Are they really there, or are they moving through a memory? Are they seeing the tree they are passing, or are they replaying an argument from 10 years ago? Are they feeling the sun on their skin, or are they worrying about a future that has not yet arrived? Most people do not live their own life. They live a life handed down to them by parents, by culture, by fear, by repetition. They carry beliefs they never questioned. They repeat habits they never examined. They follow rules they never chose. They react with emotions that were planted in them long before they could speak. Their mind is not a pure mirror reflecting reality. It is a cluttered storage room filled with old voices, old instructions, old ghosts whispering so loudly that they drown out the sound of their own heart. And yet, because this noise is familiar, they think it is natural. They think it is who they are. They say, I am a Christian, I am a Hindu, I am a socialist, I am a nationalist. They do not realize that these are not their faces, these are masks glued to their skin by others. If you were born in a different house, just a few miles away, your I am would be completely different. You would die for a different book, you would kill for a different flag. This is the first layer of the matrix that keeps humanity asleep. Identification. The moment you identify with a label given to you by society, you stop seeing, you stop inquiring, you stop being an intelligence, you become a record player. If you are ready to stop being a record player and start being a living consciousness, click the like button. Let this be a signal that you are breaking the record. The unconscious mind moves like a machine. It repeats yesterday again and again. It avoids anything new because newness threatens the comfort of routine. Have you noticed this machinery in your own life? How you react exactly the same way to the same trigger year after year. Someone pushes a button, perhaps an insult, perhaps a compliment, and immediately you react. You do not choose the reaction. The reaction happens to you. It is robotic. If you insult a machine, it cannot choose to laugh. It must process the input according to its programming. Most human beings are exactly like this. They are biological machines. They think they are conscious, but they are only reacting. The wife says something. and the husband reacts instantly, as if a spring has been released. The boss frowns, and the employee feels fear instantly, as if a switch has been flipped. There is no gap, there is no space, and where there is no space, there is no soul. The matrix relies on this lack of space. It relies on you remaining a machine. Because machines are predictable, machines are easy to control, machines do not rebel, machines do not ask, "Who am I?" Machines only ask, "What are my instructions?" And when you awaken even a little, when you create even a tiny gap between the trigger and the reaction, you begin to see this machinery everywhere. You see people acting but not choosing. You see people speaking but not understanding. You see people reacting but not being present. You walk into a room and you see puppets. Invisible strings are pulling their hands. Invisible strings are moving their mouths. The strings of the past, the strings of biology, the strings of society. And this realization can shake you deeply at first. It can be terrifying. You look at your loved ones, your father, your mother, your partner, and you suddenly see the strings. You see that they are not free. They are acting out a script written generations ago. You see the potential for flight in them, but you see them crawling on the ground, convinced they have no wings. You see the potential for love, but you see them trading in transactions and securities. You see the Buddha inside them, struggling to breathe under layers of dust. But remember, the sleeper is not at fault. The sleeper does not choose sleep. Sleep is given. Sleep is inherited. Sleep is taught. From the moment a child is born, the conspiracy begins. And I call it a conspiracy, not in a dark, evil sense, but in a mechanical sense. The parents are asleep, so they must put the child to sleep. They cannot tolerate an awake child. An awake child is a disturbance. An awake child asks dangerous questions. Why? Why must I do this? Why is this true? And the sleeping parents do not have the answers. So they say, "Because I said so, because it is written, because this is how we do it." They force the child to close his eyes, to stop looking, to stop asking, and to start believing. Belief is the drug. Belief is the sleeping pill. A sleeping person lives in a fog, and the fog feels like home. They have lived in this fog for so long that clear air feels harsh to their lungs. And when the fog feels like home, even a soft light can feel frightening. Even a small truth can feel threatening. Even a gentle question can feel like an attack. You begin to understand that the world does not resist your clarity because it is evil. It resists because awakening hurts the eyes. Imagine you have been in a dark cave for 30 years. Your eyes have adjusted to the darkness. You can see the shadows. You know where the rocks are. You feel safe. And suddenly someone comes with a torch, a bright, burning torch. Do you thank them? No. You scream. Your eyes burn. You are blinded by the light. You want to kill the man with the torch because he has taken away your comfortable darkness. This is the situation of the mystic, the awakened one in society. You are the man with the torch, and the society is the cave. Imagine a crowd walking with closed eyes, believing this is the natural way to move. They have maps created by others, priests, politicians, teachers who were also blind. They have footsteps to follow. They have rules that keep them from falling. Walk 3 steps left, then 2 steps right. They follow these rules religiously, and suddenly you open your eyes. You see the cliff, you see the flowers, you see the sky, and you begin moving differently, more freely, more silently, more intuitively. You do not march, you dance. You do not follow a straight line. You move like water, going around the obstacles. And the blind crowd hears your movement. It sounds wrong to them. It sounds chaotic. It sounds dangerous. They cannot understand your movement because they cannot imagine the space you are seeing. And instead of asking, "What do you see?" they say, "Stay with us, move like us, don't go too far, you will get lost." Their fear is not about you going ahead. Their fear is about losing the illusion that the closed eye world is the whole world. If you can see, then their blindness is exposed. If you are free, then their chains become visible. And no one wants to see their chains. Sometimes I say that humanity lives like sheep following one another, not because they are foolish, but because they are terrified of standing alone in the open field. The sheep do not know where they are going. They only know they do not want to be alone. The sheep in the front is following the one before him, and the one in the back is following the one before him. It is a circle. Nobody knows where they are going, but everybody feels safe because so many people are going there. It must be the right way. This logic, the logic of the crowd, is the most dangerous logic in the world. Everyone cannot be wrong. I tell you, everyone is usually wrong. The crowd is almost always wrong because the crowd is the lowest common denominator. The crowd is where intelligence falls asleep and mob psychology takes over. In the same way, the unconscious person does not question the direction of their life. They look around. My neighbors are buying this car, so I must buy this car. My friends are getting married at 30, so I must get married at 30. Everyone is miserable on Mondays, so I must be miserable on Mondays. They mimic, they imitate, they are carbon copies of carbon copies. And when you step out of the herd becomes very nervous. A sheep that walks away is a criticism of the herd. The sheep are not angry that you are leaving. They are terrified because your leaving raises a question in their own small minds. Is there something out there? Is the grass greener? Are we just standing here to be sheared? They do not want to ask this. So they bleat, they make noise, they try to pull you back. If you are feeling the pull to leave the herd, if you are feeling the call of the wild lion inside you, support this channel by clicking join. Become a member of a different kind of gathering, a gathering of lions, not sheep. And when you see this clearly, when you understand how deeply people sleep, something shifts inside you. You stop expecting them to understand you. You stop expecting them to meet you where you stand. You stop expecting them to celebrate your awakening. You realize it is foolish to expect a sleeping person to appreciate the sunrise. You simply see the truth of their condition, and that truth gives you both distance and compassion. The distance to stay centered and the compassion to not judge their sleep. This understanding is crucial because once you grasp the depth of this unconsciousness, the world's reactions to your clarity will no longer confuse you. You will see why people cling to illusions as if they are clinging to life itself. You will see why truth frightens those who have built their identity on lies. You will see why awakening is rare. Not because it is difficult. Awakening is the easiest thing in the world. It is your nature. But because it demands a courage most have never been taught to cultivate. It demands the courage to stand alone. To unplug from the matrix is to unplug from the comfort of the crowd. It is to accept that you may be the only one seeing the rainbow while everyone else is looking at the mud. And you must be okay with that. You must be able to enjoy the rainbow alone. You must be able to dance alone. And now that we've stepped into the world of the unconscious, into the valley of the sleeping humanity, the next question naturally rises: how is this sleep maintained? What are the specific mechanisms, the psychological guards that keep the door to reality locked? How do illusions protect these sleepers? How do their dreams shield them from themselves? And why does your clarity become a threat to the very protection they believe they need? We must look at the architecture of the comfort zone. The comfort zone is the most heavily guarded prison in the world. It has no barbed wire, it has no armed guards. Its walls are made of fear and its bars are made of habits, and the prisoner guards himself. Let us go deeper into this structure. When you begin to see the machinery of the unconscious mind, when you recognize how deeply people sleep and how naturally they follow patterns that were never theirs to begin with, another layer of understanding opens before you. The layer of illusion, the soft blanket that surrounds the sleeping mind and keeps it from shivering in the cold winds of truth. Illusion is not an enemy to the sleeping mind. Illusion is a necessity. You must understand this. The truth is fire. The truth burns. The truth destroys everything that is false. And because 99% of your personality is false, the truth feels like death. So the mind creates a buffer. It creates a cushion. It creates illusion. Illusion is a protection, a shield, a small fragile bubble that allows the unaware to move through life without collapsing under the weight of their own unprocessed pain. If people saw reality as it is, the impermanence, the death that walks beside them every moment, the utter groundlessness of their existence, they would go mad, or they would become enlightened. There is no middle ground. Most people are not ready for enlightenment, so they choose a kind of manageable madness. They choose illusion. And once you understand this, you stop judging the illusions people cling to. You begin to see why they defend their beliefs with such intensity, why they guard their identities with such force, why they cling to their stories as if they were life jackets in a stormy sea. Look at the man who believes money will bring him happiness. He chases it for 50 years. He is stressed, he is tired, he is sick, but he keeps chasing. Why? Because if he stops, he has to face the emptiness inside him. The illusion that happiness is just around the corner keeps him moving. It gives him a reason to get out of bed. If you tell him, "Sir, money will not fill your hole," he will get angry. You are taking away his hope. You are taking away his drug. Most people never choose their illusions. Illusions choose them. A person who has never met their own inner wounds needs illusion to survive. It becomes their emotional armor. Without it, the rawness underneath would overwhelm them. So the illusion steps in and says, "Don't look within, look away, find distraction, find noise, find routine, find anything that keeps the truth from rising too quickly." Illusion gives comfort where reality would give challenge. Illusion gives certainty where truth would create transformation. Illusion gives the feeling of safety without ever offering the real thing. It is like a plastic flower. It looks perfect. It never dies. It never needs water. But it has no fragrance. It has no life. It has no soul. And most people are satisfied with plastic flowers because real flowers die and death is frightening. Real flowers have thorns and thorns hurt. If you are ready to throw away the plastic flowers and hold the real, thorny, fragrant rose of life, show your appreciation with a super thanks. Let it be an offering to reality. Let me give you something simple so you feel this more deeply. Picture a house built entirely out of cards. The person living in it believes it is strong because they have never questioned its foundation. They decorate it, paint it, fill it with memories. They hang pictures on the flimsy walls. They invite friends over to admire the house. And then one day a small breeze enters, just a whisper of truth, and the whole structure begins to tremble. The trembling is not because the truth is violent. The truth is never violent. The truth is gentle like the morning sun. The trembling is because the foundation was never real. And instead of looking at the fragility of the house, the person becomes angry at the breeze. Why are you blowing? You are ruining my house. You are negative. You are destructive. This is how people treat those who see truth. They do not question their house of cards. They question the wind. They blame the wind. They want to outlaw the wind. They build higher walls to keep the wind out. But the wind is simply the wind. It goes where it wants. It is the nature of existence to be true, and existence constantly conspires to blow down your house of cards, not to hurt you, but to liberate you, to show you that you don't need a house. The whole sky is yours, but the ego loves the house. The ego loves the enclosure. Illusion also helps people avoid pain. Many carry deep wounds, unhealed childhood hurts, old betrayals, inherited fear, generations of silence. And these wounds sit just beneath the surface of awareness, like a volcano waiting to erupt. If they were to see too clearly, if they were to feel too deeply, the pain would rise like a storm. So they cover it with illusions. Illusions of strength, I don't need anyone, I am tough. Illusions of certainty, my religion is the only right one, everyone else is going to hell. Illusions of happiness, look at my smile on social media, look at my perfect vacation. Illusions of importance, I am a manager, I have a title, I matter. These illusions act as a warm blanket, comforting but suffocating. And when your clarity lifts the blanket even a little, the cold air touches their skin and they react with fear, not fear of you, but fear of the pain they have kept hidden for so long. This is why truth requires courage, not courage to face the world. Facing the world is easy, you just put on a mask and go. But courage to face oneself, to face your own emptiness, to face your own loneliness, to face the fact that you have been wrong about almost everything, to face the fact that you have wasted years chasing shadows. Most people were never taught this courage. They were taught to cope, not to grow. They were taught to obey, not to awaken. They were taught to hide, not to see. And so illusion becomes their shelter. It keeps them stable. It keeps them functioning. It keeps them able to move through life without collapsing. When you recognize this, judgment dissolves and empathy rises. But empathy doesn't mean you must dim your own vision. It doesn't mean you must swallow your truth or make your light smaller. It doesn't mean you should sit in the dark just to make the blind feel comfortable. That is not compassion, that is stupidity. It means you understand that your clarity, even when offered gently, may touch someone's illusion too suddenly, too brightly, too deeply. And their reaction, their fear, their denial, their anger, their distance is simply the shield protecting the illusion they depend on. A blanket of darkness can feel warm. A dream can feel safer than waking up. A lie can feel more stable than the truth. And when you, with your open eyes, enter the room, you remind them without a single word that awakening is possible. And possibility is frightening before it is liberating. Freedom is dizzying. If you take a bird that has been in a cage for years and open the door, it does not fly out immediately. It shrinks back. It is afraid of the vastness of the sky. The sky is too big. The cage is small, but the cage is known. The known is always safer than the unknown. This is where your suffering begins, not from seeing the truth, but from being alone in your seeing. When illusion is the home of the many, and clarity becomes the home of the few, the awake one stands on a different shore, watching the waves that others pretend not to notice. And this loneliness, this separation, brings us to the next stage of awakening, the quiet, aching path that every seer must walk. We must speak of this loneliness, because if you do not understand it, you will try to cure it. You will try to fill it. And if you try to fill it, you will plug yourself back into the matrix. The loneliness is not a disease, it is a signal. It is a sign that you are disconnecting from the collective mind. When illusion protects the many and truth awakens the few, a natural distance begins to form between the one who sees and the ones who still sleep. And this distance is not created by choice, nor by judgment, nor by pride. It is created by the very nature of awareness itself. When your eyes open, you begin to walk in a different world, even while your feet still touch the same ground. You are in the marketplace, but you are not of the marketplace. You are with your family, but you are no longer just a role, son, daughter, husband, wife. You are a presence. And this creates a loneliness that is unlike any loneliness you have known before. It is not the loneliness of missing someone. It is not the loneliness of being unloved. Those are ego loneliness. This is existential loneliness. It is the loneliness of seeing too deeply in a world that fears depth, of hearing too clearly in a world that avoids silence, of knowing too honestly in a world that survives on uncomfortable lies. This is a loneliness that does not come from being abandoned by others. It comes from being abandoned by the old version of yourself. The self that once fit into the crowd no longer exists. The self that once agreed to the games of the world can no longer pretend. The self that once felt safe in the noise now craves the purity of stillness. And when you outgrow your old self, you outgrow the tribe that was built around that self. So even when people are near you, even when voices surround you, even when laughter fills the room, you feel a subtle distance inside, a quiet space between you and the noise, a separation that cannot be bridged by effort. But why is this space necessary? Why does existence require this separation? Because you cannot find your own center while you are leaning on others. You cannot find your own voice while you are echoing the crowd. The matrix is a system of mutual leaning. Everyone is leaning on everyone else. If one falls, everyone falls. To be free, you must learn to stand vertical, to stand alone like a pillar of light. If you are ready to stand vertical, to be a pillar in a world of leaning walls, join us. Click the join button. Let us create a forest of vertical pillars, separate but united in the sky. Imagine a monk sitting on a hill while the village sleeps below. The monk hears the wind, the rustling of leaves, the whisper of the night. He sees the stars with a clarity the villagers never notice. He feels the vastness around him, the silence, the depth. And even if he walks back to the village, sits in the marketplace, shares food with the people, a part of him remains on the hill, a part that is awake, alert, watching, understanding. That part can never fully return to sleep, and because of that, the monk can never fully return to the world as he knew it. You too become that monk. Even if your life is in the city, even if you live with family, even if you participate in the world, a silent hill grows inside you, a distance, a clarity, a sky, and the world below feels restless, crowded, noisy, confused, not wrong, not bad, just asleep. And this creates a loneliness that is not painful by nature, but it becomes painful when you resist it, when you try to drag your awakened self back into the old world, when you try to make the clear eyes pretend they cannot see, when you force your heart to fit back into a space it has already outgrown. The pain is the resistance, the loneliness is the truth, but something beautiful begins to happen when you stop resisting this loneliness. You begin to see that it is not emptiness, it is space. Space for your own soul to breathe, space for your awareness to grow, space for silence to speak, space for your being to settle. And in this space, a transformation happens quietly, gently, like dawn entering a dark room. The loneliness that once felt cold begins to feel warm. The emptiness that once felt heavy begins to feel light. The distance that once felt painful begins to feel peaceful. You begin to enjoy your own presence, your own company, your own inner world, and slowly the loneliness becomes a doorway to depth, a doorway to peace, a doorway to real connection. Because only when you walk alone for a time do you learn how to stand on your own feet. Only when you sit in silence do you learn how to listen. Only when you face yourself do you learn how to meet others without illusion. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is the fire that burns away your dependency. A candle must burn alone before it can light another candle. A seed must remain buried in darkness before it breaks into life. A river begins as a single drop before it becomes an ocean. In the same way, the awake one must pass through this sacred loneliness until the inner being becomes whole, steady, grounded. But this is not the end. The loneliness is just the tunnel. What waits on the other side? What happens when you stop fighting the silence and start drinking it? What happens when you realize that the mental matrix was not just keeping you from the world, but keeping you from the divine? We must explore the shift from loneliness to aloneness, the shift from needing the world to being the world. And to do that, we must face the greatest trick the matrix ever played on you, the idea that you are incomplete. The idea that you are incomplete is the foundation of the marketplace. Look at the world economy. Look at the structure of society. It is all built on one single premise. You are missing something. You are missing beauty. So buy this cream. You are missing confidence. So buy this car. You are missing God. So join this religion. You are missing love. So find this partner. The mental matrix whispers to you from the moment you wake up until the moment you fall asleep. You are not enough. You are a fragment. You are empty. And because you believe this whisper, you become a beggar. You may be a rich beggar. You may be a poor beggar. But the inner posture is the same. You are holding out a bowl, asking the world to fill you. But I tell you, this is the greatest lie ever told. You are not a fragment. You are the whole. You are not empty. You are so full that you are overflowing. But you are sitting on a box of gold, begging for copper coins from strangers. There is a beautiful Sufi story about a beggar who sat on an old wooden box for 30 years. He begged from everyone who passed by. Please, he would say, give me some change, give me some food. One day, a stranger passed by, a man with bright, clear eyes. The beggar held out his old baseball cap. Spare some change. The stranger said, I have nothing to give you, but tell me, what is inside that box you are sitting on? The beggar laughed. This old thing? It's just a seat. It has been with me for decades. It is empty, the stranger insisted. Have you ever looked inside? No, said the beggar. Why would I? It is just wood. Look, said the stranger. Just look. Reluctantly, the beggar pried open the lid, and he was shocked. The box was filled with gold, pure, shining gold. He had been sitting on his fortune for 30 years while begging for pennies. You are that beggar. The box is your own being. The gold is your awareness, your silence, your divinity, but the matrix keeps your attention focused outward on the passerby, on the world, on the next thing. It tells you, don't look in the box. Look at the shop window, look at the television, look at your neighbor. Why? Why does the matrix want you to remain a beggar? Because a beggar is easy to control. A beggar is dependent. If you know you are the emperor, you cannot be enslaved. If you know you have the gold, you will stop buying their plastic toys. You will stop voting for their angry leaders. You will stop fighting their foolish wars. An awake person is dangerous to the establishment because an awake person is content, and a content person is not a consumer. If you are ready to open the box and claim your gold, click the like button. Let it be the moment you stop begging and start looking within. But to open that box, you must confront the force that keeps the lid closed. You must confront the ego's investment in your misery. This is a subtle point, so listen carefully. You think you want to be happy, you say you want to be free, but deep down, there is a part of you that loves your misery. There is a part of you that clings to your chains. Why? Because your misery gives you an identity. If you are a victim, you have a role. You can complain, you can gain sympathy. You can say, look at what the world has done to me, it defines you. I am the one who suffered. I am the one who was betrayed. If I take away your suffering, who are you? You suddenly become a nobody. You become empty space. And the ego is terrified of being a nobody. It would rather be a miserable somebody than a happy nobody. This is why people hold on to their traumas like treasures. They polish them. They tell the story of their pain again and again. Watch people at a party. They are not sharing their joys, they are competing with their miseries. Oh, you think your headache is bad? Wait until you hear about my migraine. You think your divorce was difficult? Wait until you hear about mine. It is a competition. Who is the biggest victim? Because the biggest victim gets the most attention. And to the ego, attention is food. Even negative attention is better than no attention. This investment in misery creates a powerful defense mechanism. When you start to awaken, when you start to unplug, the ego warns you, if you let go of this anger, if you let go of this sadness, you will be alone. No one will pity you, no one will comfort you. You will be responsible for your own life. And that is the word that frightens the sleeper the most. Responsibility, freedom. And responsibility are two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. The sleeper wants freedom, but he does not want responsibility. He wants to be free, but he wants to blame his father, his mother, the government, the economy, the stars for his condition. But the moment you unplug, you realize, I am responsible. No one is doing this to me, I am doing this to myself. This is a shock. It is a heavy weight at first. You can no longer point fingers. You can no longer say, he made me angry. No, you created anger in response to him. The factory of anger is inside you. He simply pushed the start button, but the machine is yours. The electricity is yours. The chemicals are yours. If you are ready to take absolute responsibility for your inner world, which is the only way to be a master, click join. Join the ranks of those who no longer blame the stars but who become the stars. The Matrix offers you a trade. Give me your freedom and I will give you comfort. Give me your responsibility and I will give you security. And most people take the trade. They choose the cage because the cage has a feeding schedule. The wild bird has to find its own food. The wild bird has to face the storm, but the wild bird has the sky. The caged bird has only the bars. We must look deeper into this comfort zone. What is it really? It is not truly comfortable. If you look at your life, your so-called comfort zone is actually quite uncomfortable. It is full of anxiety, stress, boredom, repetition. So why do we call it comfort? Because it is known. The mind equates known with safe. Even if the known is hell, the mind prefers it to an unknown heaven. At least in hell, you know the demons. You know how hot the fire is. You know the schedule of the torture. It is predictable. But heaven, freedom, silence, that is the unknown. It is a dark abyss. You don't know what will happen next. And the mind trembles before the unknown. It fills the unknown with dragons. Here be monsters, so you stay in the tiny circle of what you know. You date the same kind of people, you work the same kind of job, you think the same kind of thoughts, you eat the same food. You are a prisoner who has fallen in love with the walls because the walls are familiar. To unplug is to step into the unknown. It is to embrace insecurity. I teach you insecurity. I teach you groundlessness, because life is insecure. Life is groundless. Look at nature. Is a flower secure? A strong wind can destroy it. An animal can eat it. And yet the flower dances. It opens its petals to the sun. It does not hide in a bunker. It lives dangerously. And because it lives dangerously, it lives beautifully. You are hiding in a bunker of beliefs, a bunker of insurance policies, a bunker of psychological defenses. You are safe, yes, but you are dead. You are breathing, but you are not alive. To be alive is to be vulnerable. To be alive is to be open to the wind. And the ego creates another sophisticated defense to keep you in the bunker. The drug of tomorrow. The mental matrix is built on the concept of time. Not clock time. Clock time is useful. You need it to catch a train. I am talking about psychological time, the past and the future. The ego cannot survive in the present. Have you noticed? In the absolute now, there is no problem. There may be pain. If you pinch your skin, there is pain, but there is no suffering. Suffering is the story you tell about the pain. Suffering is, why is this happening to me? When will it end? This is unfair. That is the mind dragging the past and the future into the present. In the pure now, you are simply here, breathing, sensing, existing. In this space, the ego disappears. So the ego constantly pulls you out of the now. It pulls you into the memories of the past, regret, nostalgia, guilt, or it pushes you into the projections of the future, hope, worry, ambition. Tomorrow is the most dangerous drug in the world. It is more potent than any chemical. Tomorrow I will change. Tomorrow I will be happy. Tomorrow when I get that promotion, then I will relax. Tomorrow when I find the perfect lover, then I will feel whole. It is a carrot on a stick. The donkey runs after the carrot, but the carrot is attached to the donkey's head. The faster the donkey runs, the faster the carrot moves. You never catch tomorrow, because when it arrives, it is always today. You have spent your whole life waiting for tomorrow. You are sacrificing the only reality you have this moment for a fantasy that never comes. The matrix sells you hope. Hope is the poison. You will be shocked to hear me say this. I want you to be hopeless, not in the sense of depression. Depression is just hope that has turned sour. Depression is still attached to hope. I hope for this and it didn't happen, so now I am sad. I want you to be simply hopeless, meaning you do not look to the future for your fulfillment. You drop the project of becoming. You simply are. When you drop hope, you drop fear. They go together. You cannot have hope without fear. You hope to succeed. Immediately you fear failure. You hope for heaven. Immediately you fear hell. When you drop both, you are free. You are suddenly available to the present moment. And in this moment, the gold is already here. The box is already open. If you are finding value in this transmission, if these words are cutting the strings of your hope and fear, consider leaving a super thanks. It is a way to ground this energy in the present moment. But the mind is cunning. It will say, okay, Osho, I will live in the present starting tomorrow. You see, the mechanism is slippery. You must watch it like a hawk. You must catch the mind in the act of escaping. Every time you feel bored, watch the mind. Boredom is simply the mind saying, this moment is not enough. I want entertainment. I want stimulation. The mind refuses to be with what is. It wants what isn't. Every time you feel anxious, watch the mind. Anxiety is the mind traveling to a future that has not happened and trying to solve problems that do not exist yet. Every time you feel guilty, watch the mind. Guilt is the mind trying to rewrite a past that is already gone. Unplugging means staying with what is, even if what is painful. If you are sad, be sad. Don't try to be happy. If you try to be happy, you create a conflict. Now you are sad and you are fighting the sadness. You are divided. Be totally sad. Go into the sadness. Sit with it. Don't judge it. Don't say, I shouldn't be sad. Who said you shouldn't be sad? The matrix said it. The matrix says, keep smiling, keep producing, be positive. I say, be authentic. If sadness is the climate of your being right now, then let it rain. There is a beauty in sadness. It has a depth, a silence, a relaxation that happiness often lacks. When you stop fighting your experience, the energy that was wasted in the conflict is released, and that energy becomes awareness. That energy becomes the light that dissolves the matrix. Now, we must uncover another layer of defense, one that hides in plain sight. It is the very language you speak, the words you use, the labels you paste onto reality. The mental matrix is, at its core, a linguistic prison. You do not see a tree, you see the word tree. You do not see a woman, you see the word woman, wife, stranger. The word is a filter. It stands between you and the thing itself. Language is useful for utility, to order coffee, to read a map. But language is a barrier to intimacy. You cannot love a label. You cannot feel the texture of existence through a definition. The moment you name something, you stop seeing it. You say, "Oh, that is a rose," and you walk past. You have categorized it. You have filed it away. I know what that is. But do you? Have you ever truly looked at a rose? Have you seen its color without the word red? Have you smelled its scent without the word flower? The matrix is built of nouns and verbs. It segments the fluid, unified dance of reality into separate solid blocks. This is me, that is you, this is good, that is bad, this is mine, that is yours. These lines do not exist in nature. The air in your lungs was outside a moment ago. The air outside will be in your lungs a moment later. Where do you end and the world begin? There is no line. It is a continuous exchange. You are breathing the universe, and the universe is breathing you. But the word me creates a wall, a tiny hard shell. To unplug is to begin to look at the world non-verbally, to look without the commentary, to recover the child's eye. Remember when you were very small, before you learned language, how did the world look? It was magical, it was intense, it was overwhelming. A butterfly was a miracle, a shadow on the wall was a mystery, everything was alive. Then they taught you words, this is a butterfly, this is a shadow, and the magic faded. The world became a collection of objects. It became dead. I want you to reclaim that magic, and you can do it right now. Look at something around you, maybe your hand, maybe the wall. Look at it, but don't name it. Don't say hand, just see the shape, the texture, the light, the color. Let the visual data enter your eyes without the mind processing it into a concept. If the word hand comes up, simply notice it and let it pass. Return to the raw sensation. In that moment of wordless seeing, the matrix cracks. You are touching reality directly. You are touching the suchness of things, the tathata. This practice is small, but it is a key that opens the lock of the linguistic prison. The ego loves language because the ego is language. The ego is nothing but a very long, very complicated sentence that you have been repeating since childhood. I am John, I am a doctor, I am successful, I am worried. Silence the language, and the ego has no place to stand. But the ego will resist this silence. It will resist this direct seeing. And its greatest weapon against silence is distraction. We live in the age of distraction. It has never been easier to avoid yourself. The matrix has put a screen in your pocket that connects you to the entire noise of the world, 24 hours a day. You are never alone, you are never bored, you are never silent. If you have a spare moment waiting for the bus, sitting on the toilet, immediately the hand goes to the pocket. The screen lights up, the scroll begins. Why? What are you looking for? You are looking for an escape. You are running from the silence, because in the silence, the questions arise. Is this it? Am I happy? What am I doing with my life? The phone is the pacifier for the adult baby. It keeps you numb. It keeps you entertained. It keeps you asleep. I am not saying technology is evil. Technology is a tool, but you have become the tool of the tool. You are being used. Your attention is being mined. Your consciousness is being harvested. To unplug, you must reclaim your attention. You must be able to sit in a room doing nothing without reaching for a distraction. Pascal said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He was right. And today it is harder than ever, but the reward is greater than ever. If you can sit quietly, if you can be with yourself, without technology, without noise, without alcohol, without gossip, you become a king. You regain your sovereignty. The matrix feeds on your scattered attention. When you focus your attention back on your own center, you cut the food supply. You starve the matrix. This is the path of the warrior, not a warrior who fights with swords, but a warrior who fights with awareness, a warrior who fights the urge to sleep. And as you reclaim your attention, as you withdraw your energy from the distractions and the dramas and the linguistic labels, you will encounter the next layer, the layer of emotion, specifically the emotions you have repressed, the emotions you were told were bad. The matrix manages you by dividing your emotions into acceptable and unacceptable. Boys don't cry, nice girls don't get angry. Don't be afraid. So what do you do with the tears, the anger, the fear? You don't express them. You repress them. You push them down into the basement of your unconscious. But nothing ever dies in the unconscious. It stays there, alive, pulsing, waiting, and it controls you from the dark. You may not feel angry, but you have high blood pressure. You may not feel sad, but you have no energy. You are carrying a heavy bag of repressed energy. To unplug, you must open the basement. You must invite the ghosts to tea. This is the process of catharsis. You must allow the repressed energy to flow. You must unblock the river. When the anger is released, it leaves behind a space of peace. When the tears are shed, the eyes become clear. The matrix is afraid of your wildness. It wants you civilized. It wants you polite. But freedom is not polite. Freedom is wild. Your soul is not a manicured garden. It is a jungle. And until you accept your jungle, you will remain a prisoner of the garden. The journey we are on is a journey from the garden to the jungle, from the polite mask to the raw face, from the dead word to the living silence. It is a dangerous journey. I warned you at the beginning. You will lose your comfort. You will lose your illusions. You will lose your chains. But you will gain the only thing that matters. You will gain yourself. Now, as we stand at the edge of this jungle, looking into the wildness of our own being, we must understand the most fundamental mechanism that the matrix uses to keep us tame. We must understand the mechanism of judgment. The judge who sits in your head, watching every move, condemning, criticizing, comparing, the inner critic, the voice of the father, the voice of the priest, the voice of the society living inside your skull. How do we silence this judge? How do we fire him? Because until the judge is gone, you cannot be free. You cannot dance if you are being watched by a judge who gives scores. In the next part of this talk, we will put the judge on trial. We will expose his lack of authority. We will learn the art of total acceptance, because only love, self-love, radical acceptance can dissolve the bars of judgment. Stay with me, the chains are loosening, the door is opening, the jungle is calling. If you hear the call, if you feel the wildness stirring, subscribe to the channel. Do not miss the next step of your liberation. And if you wish to deepen your understanding of these mechanisms, to read the maps of the mind that I have laid out, check the e-books in the description. They are tools for your backpack as you enter the jungle. Remain wild, remain watchful. We must put the judge on trial. We must expose his lack of authority. We must learn the art of total acceptance, because only love, self-love, radical acceptance can dissolve the bars of judgment. Listen closely, because this is the most intimate prison of all. The other prisons, society, religion, education, are outside, but the judge is inside. He has infiltrated your very bloodstream. He is the voice that wakes you up in the middle of the night saying, "You made a mistake. You are not good enough. You should have done better. Who is this judge? Where did he come from? You were not born with him. When you were born, you were pure innocence. You did not look at your hands and say, 'These hands are ugly.' You did not look at your crying and say, 'This is wrong.' You simply existed." The judge is an intruder. He is the internalized voice of your parents, your teachers, your priests, your politicians. He is the collective neurosis of the society implanted in your mind. Freud called it the superego. I call it the inner enemy. The matrix relies on this inner split. It divides you into two: the real you, who feels, who desires, who makes mistakes, who is human, and the ideal you, the perfect plastic image of who you should be. The judge stands between them, constantly beating the real you for not being the ideal you. You should be more loving. You should be more successful. You should be less angry. You should be more spiritual. Should is the whip the judge uses to torture you. I tell you, drop all shoulds. Existence has no shoulds. Does a rose bush say, "I should produce tulips"? Does a river say, "I should flow in a straight line"? No. They simply are what they are, and because they accept what they are beautiful. They are graceful. You are the only animal on this planet that drives itself mad trying to be something it is not. You are the only animal that feels guilt. Guilt is the heaviest chain the matrix has placed upon you. It is a poison that paralyzes your life energy. Religion has used guilt for centuries to control you. They invented original sin, the idea that you are born wrong, born flawed, born guilty. What a crime against humanity to tell a newborn child you are a sinner. Why do they do this? Because a guilty person is afraid. A guilty person is obedient. A guilty person goes to the church, goes to the temple, pays the priest, follows the rules, hoping to wash away the stain. But there is no stain. You are born pristine. You are born divine. If you are ready to wash away the false stain of guilt and reclaim your original innocence, click the like button. Let it be a baptism of your own awareness. The judge uses guilt to keep you small. If you laugh too loud, the judge says, "Quiet down, people are watching." If you dance too wildly, the judge says, "You look foolish." If you enjoy sex, the judge says, "This is dirty." He cuts off your wings. He turns your wild, soaring energy into a small, tame trickle. To unplug, you must stop listening to the judge. You must realize that he is not God. He is just a recording of old dead people who were also miserable. Why are you listening to the dead? You are alive. When the voice says, "You are bad," simply watch it. Don't fight it. If you fight it, you give it reality. Simply say, "Ah, the recording is playing again." Smile at it. Laugh at it. Laughter destroys the judge. The judge cannot survive ridicule. He takes himself very seriously. If you laugh, he shrinks. And what replaces the judge? Self-love. But be careful, the matrix has corrupted the word love too. When I say self-love, I do not mean narcissism. Narcissism is not self-love. It is self-obsession born of insecurity. The narcissist looks in the mirror and says, I am the best, because deep down he fears he is the worst. He needs constant validation. True self-love is silent. It is a deep relaxation into your own being. It is saying, I am enough. I am perfect as I am, with my flaws, with my scars, with my madness. I do not need to be improved. This is the most rebellious statement you can make. I do not need to be improved. The whole economy depends on you needing improvement. The whole education system depends on it. The whole religious structure depends on it. Come to us, we will fix you. I say, you are not broken. You do not need fixing. You need waking up. When you accept yourself totally, the judge evaporates. And when the judge evaporates, a tremendous energy is released. The energy that was used to repress yourself becomes available for creativity, for joy, for celebration. You become a fountain, but the ego will not give up easily. If it cannot control you through guilt, it will try to control you through comparison. Comparison is the twin brother of the judge. The judge says you are bad. Comparison says you are worse than him. Look at how the mind constantly compares. He has a bigger house. She has a more beautiful body. He is more intelligent. She is more enlightened. Comparison is violence. It is violence against your uniqueness. There has never been an individual like you before, and there will never be one like you again. You are a masterpiece of existence. But instead of honoring your uniqueness, you are trying to be a photocopy of someone else. You compare yourself to a movie star, to a saint, to a neighbor, and of course you feel inferior. Or you compare yourself to a beggar and you feel superior. Both are diseases. Superiority and inferiority are the same illness, the illness of the ego measuring itself. Does the oak tree compare itself to the bamboo? The oak is strong, solid, vast. The bamboo is hollow, flexible, dancing in the wind. If the oak tries to dance like the bamboo, it will look ridiculous. If the bamboo tries to stand rigid like the oak, it will break. They do not compare. They enjoy their nature. You are the only one comparing, and because of this, you are missing your own life. You are looking at someone else's plate, and your own food is getting cold. Eat your food. Live your life, whatever it is. Maybe you are not famous. Good. Fame is a nightmare. Maybe you are not rich. Good. Rich people are often the poorest in spirit. Maybe you are ordinary. I tell you, to be ordinary is the most extraordinary thing in the world. To simply be without the desire to be somebody, to chop wood and carry water, and feel the bliss of existence. If you are ready to drop the burden of comparison and embrace the beauty of your ordinary, unique self, consider joining this channel. It is a community of ordinary people discovering the extraordinary inside. The matrix uses comparison to keep you running on the hamster wheel. Run faster, achieve more, beat the competition. Unplugging means stepping off the wheel. It means saying, I am not in a race, I am taking a walk. Life is not a marathon, it is a morning stroll. There is no finish line, there is no gold medal at the end. only a grave. So why run? Why not enjoy the flowers along the path? Why not sit under a tree? When you drop comparison, you drop jealousy. Jealousy is nothing but the shadow of comparison. You cannot be jealous if you do not compare. And when jealousy drops, your relationships transform. This brings us to the next great battlefield of the matrix: relationships. Most people's relationships are not love, they are mutual exploitation. They are ego battles disguised as romance. Why? Because you are using the other person. You are using them to fill your emptiness. You are using them to silence your judge. You are using them to validate your ego. Tell me I am beautiful. Tell me I am worthy. You are begging, and the other person is also begging. Two beggars holding empty bowls, begging from each other. And when the other person cannot fill your bowl because they are empty too, you get angry, you blame them, you don't love me. The matrix teaches you romantic love. It tells you that there is a soulmate out there who will make you whole. This is the biggest drug of all. It keeps you looking outside for something that can only be found inside. There is no other half. You are not a half, you are a whole. When two wholes meet, that is real love. They do not need each other, they enjoy each other, they do not cling to each other, they dance with each other. Their relationship is not a dependency, it is a sharing of overflow. But before you can reach this state, you must understand the mechanism of projection. The judge inside you creates the world outside you. This is a hard truth to swallow. You do not see people as they are, you see them as you are. If you are full of anger, you will see a hostile world. If you are full of greed, you will see a world of thieves. If you are full of love, you will see a loving world. The world is a mirror. When you hate someone, look closely. What do you really hate? You hate something in them that reminds you of something in yourself, something you have denied, something you have repressed. You hate the liar because you are a liar. You hate the arrogant person because you are arrogant. The other person is just a hook on which you hang your own psychology. This is why relationships are so difficult. You are constantly fighting with your own shadows projected onto the other person. You fall in love with your own projection. Oh, she is an angel, and when she acts like a human being, you are disappointed. She deceived me. She did not deceive you. You deceived yourself. You fell in love with a dream, and reality shattered it. Unplugging means taking back your projections. It means owning your own mind. When you feel judgment arising towards someone, stop. Turn the light inward. Ask, where is this quality in me? If you do this, the world becomes your therapist. Every person becomes a teacher. The enemy becomes a friend because the enemy shows you your hidden darkness. If you are grateful for the mirrors in your life, even the difficult ones, show your gratitude with a super thanks. It is a way of acknowledging the lesson. Taking back your projections is painful. It requires humility. It means admitting, I am the problem. But it is also liberating, because if you are the problem, then you are also the solution. You don't need to change the world. You don't need to change your wife, your husband, your boss. You only need to change your vision, clean the mirror. When the mirror is clean, the world sparkles. Now, as we clean the mirror, as we dissolve the judge, as we drop the comparisons, we begin to approach the core of the matrix. We begin to approach the engine that drives the whole machine. We have talked about the ego. But what is the ego made of? The ego is made of time. We touched on this, but we must go deeper. The ego is time. The ego is the accumulation of the past and the projection of the future. If you can stop time, you stop the ego, and the method to stop time is not a physical break. It is a shift in consciousness. It is the shift from thinking to witnessing. Thinking is always in time. You cannot think in the now. Try to think about this exact moment. By the time you think about it, it is gone. Thought is always a dead memory of the moment, not the moment itself. Witnessing is always in the now. Witnessing has no past and no future. It is a pure mirror reflecting what is passing. The matrix wants you to be a thinker. It wants you to analyze, calculate, plan, worry. I want you to be a watcher. The shift from thinker to watcher is the shift from slavery to freedom. When you are a thinker, you are lost in the traffic of the mind. You are dodging cars, breathing fumes, getting hit by buses of emotion. When you are a watcher, you are standing on the side of the road, the traffic is still there, the thoughts are still rushing by, but you are not in it. You are safe, you are untouched. This distance is the key. I call it the right distance. If you are too close to your mind, you get run over. If you try to push the mind away, suppression, you get exhausted. You must find the right distance, just watching like you watch a river flow, like you watch clouds in the sky. You don't say to the cloud, you should be moving faster. You don't say, I don't like your shape. You just watch, and a miracle happens. When you watch the mind without judgment, without interference, the traffic slows down. The gaps between the cars get bigger. Silence enters through the gaps. This silence is not the silence of a cemetery. It is a living, vibrating silence. It is the silence of the womb. It is the silence of the seed before it bursts. In this silence, the matrix cannot exist. The matrix needs noise. It needs conflict. It needs friction. In silence, there is no friction. There is only flow. But the ego will tell you, silence is boring. Silence is empty. If I become silent, I will lose my intelligence. This is a lie. The mind is not intelligence. The mind is a biocomputer. Real intelligence comes from silence. Intuition comes from silence. Creativity comes from silence. Love comes from silence. All the great things in life come from the no mind. The mind is good for mathematics, for logic, for survival, but for life, for love, for truth, the mind is a barrier. You must learn to switch it off. You must learn to unplug the computer. Most people cannot switch it off. They are slaves to the machine. The machine runs day and night, grinding, grinding, grinding. Even in sleep, it grinds, dreams. Meditation is simply the art of finding the off switch. And the switch is not a forceful action. You don't hit the mind with a hammer. The switch is awareness. Just seeing the madness of the mind is enough. The moment you see, my God, this machine is crazy, you are already out of it. You are already sane. Sanity is the capacity to stand outside your own mind. Now I want to address a very practical question that arises for everyone who starts to unplug. Osho, if I unplug, how will I survive in the world? I have a job, I have bills, I have a family. Can I be free and still live in the society? This is the fear of the renunciate. You think you have to run away to the Himalayas to be free. I say no. The Himalayas are beautiful, but they are just mountains. If you bring your noisy mind to the Himalayas, you will destroy the silence of the mountains. You will sit in a cave and think about your bank account. The real challenge and the real victory is to be in the marketplace but not of it, to be a lotus flower. The lotus grows in the mud, in the water, but not a single drop of water touches its petals. It remains untouched. You can work in the office, you can run a business, you can raise children, but you do it with a different quality. You do it playfully. You do it as an actor playing a role. You know it is a drama. You know it is a game. When the stock market crashes, the sleeping man has a heart attack. The awake man says, the game has taken a turn. He remains centered. He does what is needful, but he does not lose his sleep. This is the concept of Zorba the Buddha. Zorba represents the earth, the body, the pleasure, the dance, the wine, the marketplace. Buddha represents the sky, the soul, the silence, the awareness, the witnessing. The religions of the past told you to choose, be a Buddha, reject the Zorba, or be a Zorba, forget the Buddha. This created a schizophrenic humanity. Half of you is repressed. I say, be both. Be Zorba and Buddha. Let your feet be firmly on the ground and your head be in the stars. Enjoy the world, but don't get stuck in it. Use the matrix, but don't be used by it. This is the ultimate freedom, to move between the two worlds effortlessly, to be able to count money, and to be able to meditate, to be able to love a woman or a man, and to be able to be alone. This wholeness is what I offer you. The matrix wants you fragmented. Awareness makes you whole. But to achieve this balance, to walk this razor's edge, you need to understand the nature of fear. Fear is the border guard of the matrix. Every time you approach the edge, every time you approach freedom, fear will appear. It will appear as anxiety, as doubt, as panic, and you must learn how to shake hands with fear. You must learn that fear is not a stop sign. It is a sign that you are growing. Only the dead have no fear. If you are alive, you will have fear. The coward listens to the fear and stops. The courageous person listens to the fear and takes the step anyway. What is the greatest fear? It is not death. It is not poverty. It is the fear of losing yourself, the fear of losing the I, because as you unplug, as you become silent, the I begins to dissolve, the boundaries blur. You start to feel like a drop falling into the ocean, and the drop is terrified. I will disappear. Yes, you will disappear as a drop, but you will become the ocean. Is that a loss, or is that the ultimate gain? To face this fear, you need trust, not belief. Belief is intellectual. Trust is existential. Trust that existence is holding you. Trust that you are not an accident. The matrix tells you it's a dog-eat-dog world. You have to fight. Trust says, this is my home. I am welcome here. When you trust, you relax. When you relax, the matrix loses its grip. We are moving towards the deep end of the pool now. We have looked at the mind, the ego, the emotions, the judge, the relationships. Now we must look at the spiritual ego, because the matrix is very clever. If you escape the material prison, it will build a spiritual prison for you. It will give you a spiritual identity. I am a yogi. I am a meditator. I am holy. This is just the same game with new clothes. The holy ego is harder to break than the worldly ego because it feels superior. It shines, it glitters, but a gold chain is still a chain. How do we avoid the trap of the spiritual ego? How do we remain naked, humble, ordinary? How do we ensure that our unplugging is not just another trip of the mind? We will explore this in the next part. We will talk about the simplicity of being, the art of doing nothing, the beauty of purposelessness, because the matrix is obsessed with purpose. What is the meaning of life? What is your goal? I say life has no meaning. Life has no goal. Life is a dance. Does a dance have a goal? Do you dance to get to a specific spot on the floor? No. You dance for the sheer joy of dancing. If you are ready to stop marching and start dancing, make sure you are subscribed. The music is just beginning. And if you want to support the musicians, click join or send a super thanks. Let us dance our way out of the prison. Remain with the rhythm. Remain with the silence. And if you look closely at this obsession with purpose, you will see it is the primary engine of your anxiety. The matrix tells you time is money, don't waste time, make something of yourself. It treats your life as a raw material that must be processed into a product. You are the factory and you are also the product. But existence is not a factory, it is a play, Leela. Look at the clouds. Where are they going? Do they have a deadline? Do they have a meeting to attend? They simply float. Sometimes they go north, sometimes south. They are not serious. They are playful. Look at the river. It is in a rush, but it is not worried. It is singing. Only man is serious. Only man is worried about wasting time. I tell you, you cannot waste time because time is not a thing you possess. You are time. You can only waste yourself by being serious. To unplug is to become playful, to become purposeless. The mind will scream, this is irresponsible. The mind will say, if I am purposeless, I will be a failure. Yes, be a failure in the eyes of the matrix. To be a success in the matrix is to be a failure in the soul. To be a failure in the matrix is often the beginning of spiritual success. Jesus was a failure. He was crucified like a criminal. He had no bank account, no army, no political power. By worldly standards, a total failure. Lao Tzu was a failure. Nobody knows who he was or where he died. But their fragrance has lasted for thousands of years. The successful kings and billionaires of their time, dust, forgotten. So choose. Do you want the plastic trophy of the matrix or the eternal fragrance of the soul? If you choose the soul, you must drop the idea of becoming. The matrix is all about becoming. Becoming rich, becoming famous, becoming holy. Reality is all about being. You are already here. You are already perfect. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to achieve. Relax. Put down the heavy bag of ambition. When you stop trying to become, you suddenly discover that you are, and that isness is God. But here enters the most subtle trap I warned you about, the spiritual ego. When you leave the marketplace of money, you often enter the marketplace of spirituality. The currency changes, but the game remains the same. Instead of competing for a bigger house, you compete for a higher state of consciousness. Instead of bragging about your car, you brag about your meditation hours. I meditated for 6 hours today. So what? You can sit like a stone for 6 hours. It does not mean you are awake. It just means you have a numb behind. The spiritual ego is very dangerous because it is protected by holy words. If you are greedy for money, people call you greedy. If you are greedy for enlightenment, people call you a seeker. But greed is greed. The desire to get enlightenment is the very barrier to enlightenment. Because who is desiring? The I, the ego. I want to be enlightened. Do you see the contradiction? As long as the I is there, enlightenment cannot happen. Enlightenment is the death of the I. It is not something you get, it is something that happens when you are gone. So do not try to be spiritual. Do not try to be holy. Just be ordinary. Be simple. When you are hungry, eat. When you are tired, sleep. When you are happy, laugh. When you are sad, cry. This is the Zen way: chopping wood, carrying water. Before enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. The action is the same, but the quality has changed. Now there is no one doing it. The chopping is happening. The carrying is happening. You are just a witness. If you are ready to drop the heavy costume of holiness and just be a simple, authentic human being, click the like button. Let it be a vote for simplicity. Now, as you drop the ambition, as you drop the becoming, as you drop the spiritual ego, you will encounter the thing you have been running from your entire life. You will encounter the void, the abyss, shunyata. This is why people do not unplug. They are terrified of the emptiness they feel when the noise stops. The matrix is a noise machine designed to cover up this abyss, because in the West particularly, nothingness is seen as negative. It is seen as death. If I am nothing, I don't exist. But in the East, we know that nothingness is the source of everything. The cup is useful only because it is empty. If the cup is full, you cannot pour tea into it. The room is useful only because of the empty space inside the walls. You are useful to existence only when you are empty of ego. When you unplug, the first thing you feel is boredom. Boredom is a very significant state. Do not run from it. We treat boredom like a disease. We invent 1,000 entertainments to kill boredom. But what is boredom really? Boredom is simply the mind having no toys to play with. The mind says, I am not stimulated. Give me a problem. Give me a drama. Give me a movie. And you say no, you sit, you watch the wall. The mind goes crazy. It throws tantrums like a child. I am bored, this is useless, I am wasting my life. Watch the tantrum, don't buy a toy. If you can stay with the boredom, if you can penetrate the boredom, something miraculous happens. The boredom acts as a layer of dust. If you blow it away with your awareness, underneath you find peace. Beneath the boredom is the vast blue sky of consciousness. You have to pass through the desert of boredom to reach the oasis of the self. Most people turn back at the desert. They run back to the matrix. Better to be entertained in prison than bored in the desert. But the desert is the door. I challenge you, be bored, make an appointment with yourself to do absolutely nothing. Not meditating because your idea of meditation is doing something, just sitting, no phone, no book, no music, no mantra, just you and the silence. Pascal was right, but he didn't go far enough. The problem is not just sitting alone. The problem is facing the monster of nothingness that appears when you sit alone. The ego feels like it is dying. It is dying, let it die. This is the dark night of the soul that mystics speak of. It feels like depression, but it is not depression. Depression is heavy. This is vast. Depression is stuck. This is empty. You are being hollowed out. Existence is scraping away the junk so it can play you like a flute. If the flute is full of mud, no music can come out. You are full of the mud of the matrix, opinions, beliefs, prejudices, memories. The silence cleans the flute, and this cleaning process requires the art of doing nothing. Why wait? This is a Taoist concept. It does not mean laziness. It means non-forcing. It means moving with the current, not against it. The matrix teaches you to swim upstream, struggle, fight, conquer nature. I teach you to float, turn around, let the river take you. The river is already going to the ocean. You don't need to swim, you just need to trust. When you stop fighting, you enter a state of flow. Things happen through you, but you are not the doer. Poems are written, but you are not the poet. Dances happen, but you are not the dancer. You become a channel. This is the highest state of unplugging. You are no longer running on the matrix's power, you are running on universal power. But to the eyes of the world, you may look lazy. The world condemns the lazy man. Why? Because a lazy man cannot be exploited. You cannot make a good slave out of a man who is content to sit under a tree. The matrix needs you to be productive. I say be creative, not productive. Productivity is for machines, creativity is for gods. Production repeats the old, creation brings the new, and creation only comes from the void. It comes from the silence. If you wish to learn the secrets of this creative silence, if you wish to understand the alchemy of boredom, our ebooks are written for this very purpose. They are guides for the lazy mystic. Check the description. Now we must address the fear that keeps you from floating, the fear of going crazy. As you unplug, as you let go of the control, the mind will tell you, you are losing your mind, you are going crazy. Society calls anyone who doesn't follow the rules crazy. If you laugh for no reason, they say you are crazy. If you dance in the street, they say you are crazy. If you talk to trees, they say you are crazy. But look at the sane people. They kill each other in wars. Is that sane? They destroy the planet they live on. Is that sane? They work at jobs they hate for 40 years to buy things they don't need. Is that sane? The collective sanity is actually collective madness. To be normal in a sick society is to be sick. Don't be afraid of a little madness. In fact, you need a little divine madness to break the chains. You need to be irrational. Love is irrational. Joy is irrational. The matrix is hyper-rational. It is cold logic. You must bring warmth, chaos, and laughter back into your life. Laughter is the enemy of the matrix. You cannot laugh and be enslaved at the same time. When you laugh, really laugh, the mind stops. You cannot think and laugh simultaneously. Laughter comes from the belly, from the center. Thinking comes from the head, from the periphery. Laugh at your problems. Laugh at your ego. Laugh at the absurdity of the world. A hearty laugh is a meditation in itself. If you are enjoying this divine madness, if you are laughing at the cage, leave a super thanks. It is a way of sharing your laughter with the existence. Now let us go deeper into the abyss. What happens when you finally stop fighting the silence? You discover that the silence is not empty, it is full. It is full of presence. When you are unplugged from the man-made network, you are plugged into the cosmic network. You start to feel a connection with everything, not an intellectual connection, we are all one, but a visceral connection. You feel the tree is an extension of your arm. You feel the sun is your own heart beating. This is not poetry, this is physics. We are made of stardust. We are continuous with the universe. The matrix created the illusion of separation. I am in here, the world is out there. Unplugging destroys the wall. Out there comes in here. This is the experience of oneness, and oneness is the only cure for loneliness. We talked about loneliness before. The cure is not company, the cure is oneness. When you are one with the whole, how can you be lonely? You are the whole. You are the stars, the rocks, the oceans, the animals. You are never alone because you are everything, but you cannot force this experience. You can only allow it, and the way to allow it is surrender. Surrender is a dirty word in the matrix. It means defeat. I surrender to the enemy. In the spiritual world, surrender means victory. It means surrendering the small, isolated ego to the vast, infinite intelligence of existence. It is a drop surrender into the ocean. The drop does not die, it becomes the ocean. Are you ready to become the ocean? Or are you still clinging to being a drop? The drop is fearful. The drop is evaporating. The drop is small. The ocean is eternal. The ocean is vast. Let go. How to let go? Start with the small things. Let go of the need to be right. In an argument, just watch. Does it matter if you are right? The ego wants to be right. The soul wants to be happy. You cannot be both. If you want to be right, you will be miserable. You will be tense. If you choose to be happy, you say, okay, maybe you are right. Who cares? And suddenly the tension drops. You have unplugged from the drama. Let go of the need to control the future. You cannot control it anyway. It is a river. You have a small paddle and you think you are steering the ocean. Put down the paddle. The existence knows better than you where you need to go. Maybe you need to go through a failure to learn humility. Maybe you need to go through a heartbreak to learn compassion. Maybe you need to lose your job to find your true vocation. You don't know. The mind is limited. Existence is unlimited. Trust the intelligence of the whole. This trust is the ultimate unplugging. When you trust, you don't need the news. You don't need the insurance. You don't need the validation. You are held by invisible hands. Now I want to talk about the physical body because the matrix attacks you through the body too. It makes you numb. It disconnects you from your senses. You eat but you don't taste. You touch but you don't feel. You look but you don't see. Unplugging involves a resurrection of the senses. You must come back to your senses. Touch a rock, really touch it. Feel the coolness, the roughness, the ancient silence of the stone. Walk barefoot on the grass. Feel the earth communicating with your feet. Listen to the birds, not as background noise, but as a symphony. When your senses are alive, you are anchored in the present. You cannot be in the matrix and fully in your body at the same time. The matrix requires you to be in your head. Come down from the head to the heart and from the heart to the belly. Ground yourself. A tree with deep roots cannot be blown over by the winds of propaganda. Be like a tree. The matrix hates nature because nature cannot be digitized. Nature cannot be fake. Spend time in nature. Nature is the antidote to the matrix. When you are in the forest, Does the internet exist? No. Does politics exist? No. Does your credit score exist? No. Only life exists, pure vibrating life. Go there often. Remind yourself of what is real. If you are ready to root yourself in reality to become a tree of awareness, click join. Let our community be a forest where we support each other's growth. And as you ground yourself, as you surrender, as you face the void, you will notice a change in your energy. You will become lighter. The heaviness of the world is the heaviness of the mind. When the mind stops, gravity seems to lose its hold on you. You walk with a bounce, your eyes become clear, people will notice. They will say, you look different, you look younger, because the matrix ages you, worry ages you, lies age you. Truth is rejuvenating. Silence is the fountain of youth. You are washing your soul every day in the waters of silence, but be prepared. As you change, your environment may not change. Your family may still be asleep. Your workplace may still be a madhouse. This is the test. Can you carry your silence into the noise? It is easy to be silent in a monastery. But can you be silent in a traffic jam? Can you be silent when your boss is shouting? If you can, then your unplugging is authentic. If your silence is fragile, if it breaks easily, then it is just a mood, not a transformation. You must crystallize your awareness so that it becomes like a diamond, indestructible. And how do you crystallize it? By constant remembering. The matrix makes you forget. It distracts you. You must create triggers to remember. Right awareness, samyak smriti. When you open a door, remember, I am watching. When you take a sip of tea, remember, I am watching. When you walk, remember, I am watching. Make everything a meditation. Meditation is not a separate act. It is a quality you bring to all acts. If you cook with awareness, the food becomes holy. If you clean the floor with awareness, the cleaning becomes a prayer. There is no secular and sacred. Everything is sacred if you are awake. Everything is profane if you are asleep. The matrix wants you to compartmentalize. Sunday is for God, Monday is for money. I say every day is for God, every moment is for truth. Don't divide your life. Be a seamless whole. This wholeness is the final blow to the matrix. The matrix conquers by dividing. Divide and rule. It divides nations, religions, races, genders. It divides your own mind against your body. When you become whole, you become unconquerable. In the next part, we will explore the mystery of the witness even deeper. We will learn how to create a distance not just from thoughts, but from the greatest fear of all, death. Because the matrix holds the ultimate weapon of the fear of death over your head. Obey, or you will die. But if you can see that you are deathless, that you are eternal consciousness, then the matrix has no power left. We will enter the realm of the deathless. Stay with me. We are approaching the core of the sun. Don't close your eyes now. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with those who are ready to burn. And check the ebooks to prepare yourself for the deeper dive. Remain whole, remain rooted, remain free. We will enter the realm of the deathless, because the matrix holds the ultimate weapon of the fear of death over your head. Obey or you will die. But if you can see that you are deathless, that you are eternal consciousness, then the matrix has no power left. Listen to me carefully. Death is the greatest fiction ever invented. It is the lie that keeps the entire machinery of fear running. You have been told that you were born and therefore you will die. This is the logic of the matrix. Everything that begins must end. This is true for the body. The body is a machine. It was manufactured in the womb. It runs for 70 or 80 years, and then it breaks down. It is recycled into the earth. This is true for the mind. The mind is a collection of memories. When the brain stops, the memory file is erased. But are you the body? Are you the mind? If you sit silently, deeply silently, you will come to a startling realization: you have never been born. There is no memory of birth in you. You can remember being a child, but you cannot remember the beginning of you. Why? Why? Because you, the witness, the consciousness, has no beginning. You have always been here. Forms change, bodies change, clothes change, but the one who wears the clothes is eternal. The matrix wants you to identify with the clothes. It tells you, you are this body, you are this name, you are this gender, you are this age. And because you believe you are the body, you are terrified of the body's destruction. You spend your whole life trying to protect the body, ensure the body, comfort the body. You become a slave to the body's survival. But the moment you shift your identification from the container to the content, from the vehicle to the passenger, the fear of death evaporates. And a man without the fear of death cannot be enslaved. You can put him in prison, but he is free. You can kill his body, but he laughs, because he knows he is not being killed. Socrates was poisoned. He was given hemlock to drink. His disciples were crying, weeping. Socrates said, "Why are you crying? I am still here, and even after I drink this poison, I will still be here. The body will fall, but I will not fall." He drank the poison as if it were wine. He lay down and described the sensation. Now my feet are numb, now my legs are numb, now my hands are numb. He was witnessing his own death. If he was the body, he would be panicking. But he was the witness. He was watching the body die like you watch a sunset. This is the ultimate unplugging, to be so detached from the biological machine that you can watch it dissolve without a tremor of fear. How do we reach this state? We cannot just intellectually believe it. Belief is weak. When death knocks on the door, belief collapses. You need experience. You need to taste the deathless while you are alive. This is what meditation is. Meditation is a rehearsal for death. In meditation, you voluntarily die. You withdraw your energy from the senses. You withdraw your energy from the mind. You withdraw your energy from the world. You become a nothingness, and in that deep silence, when everything is gone, body, thought, world, you discover that you are still there, brighter than ever, more alive than ever. You realize, if I can exist without the body in meditation, I can exist without the body in death. If you are ready to practice the art of dying so you can truly live, click the like button. Let it be a commitment to your own eternity. The matrix is built on the linear concept of time. Birth, life, death. A straight line, a dead line. Reality is not linear. It is circular. It is a wheel. Seasons come and go. The sun rises and sets. The tide comes in and goes out. Life is a cycle. Death is not the end. Death is simply the dressing room where you change costumes. You take off the old tired body and you put on a fresh new one. Why be afraid of changing clothes? But the ego is linear. The ego has a beginning and an end. That is why the ego is terrified. The ego is the fear of death. When you unplug, you step off the line and enter the circle. You enter the rhythm of existence. Now, let us deepen the practice of the witness, Sakshin. This is the master key. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you forget everything else I have said, remember only this: be a witness. Most people live as doers. I am eating, I am walking, I am working. The matrix reinforces the doer. You must do this, you must achieve that. I want you to shift to watching. When you eat, don't just eat. Watch the body eating. Observe the hand lifting the spoon. Observe the mouth chewing. Observe the sensations of taste. Say to yourself, the body is eating, and I am watching. Suddenly a distance is created. You are no longer just a biological mechanism stuffing food. You are a consciousness observing a biological process. This distance is freedom. When you are walking, watch the legs moving. When you are thinking, watch the thoughts floating. When you are feeling pain, watch the pain. This is the hardest part. When pain comes, a headache, a heartache, we immediately identify, I am in pain. No, the body is in pain, the mind is in pain. You are the watcher of the pain, and the watcher cannot be in pain. The watcher is always beyond. If you can watch your migraine without judging it, without resisting it, just observing the pulsation of energy, you will be surprised. The pain is there, but the suffering is gone. Suffering is the identification with pain. Pain is physical, suffering is psychological. Pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. The matrix sells you suffering. It tells you, if you have a headache, you must suffer. You must take a pill. You must complain. I say, use the headache. Use it as an object of meditation. Watch it. It is just energy. It is just a cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. The sky is not hurt by the cloud. If you are brave enough to watch your pain instead of running from it, consider supporting this channel with a super thanks. It is a gesture of strength. The witness is the only thing in you that the matrix cannot corrupt. The matrix can corrupt your body with junk food. It can corrupt your mind with propaganda. It can corrupt your emotions with fear. But it cannot touch the witness. The witness is pure, unpolluted light. It is the God within. When you are in the witness, you are in the world, but not of it. You are invisible to the matrix. The matrix tries to grab you, but it grabs only your clothes. You have already slipped out. This is the secret of the cinema screen. Imagine a movie theater. A tragedy is playing on the screen. People are crying, dying, screaming. Does the screen cry? Does the screen bleed? No. The screen remains white. It accepts the tragedy, but it is not stained by it. Then a comedy plays. People are laughing, dancing. Does the screen laugh? No, it remains white. You are the screen. The life you think is yours. The job, the family, the struggles is just the movie projected on you. The matrix is the projector. But you are the pristine white screen. You have become so lost in the movie that you have forgotten. You are the surface on which it is playing. Unplugging is simply realizing, I am the screen. Whatever happens in the movie, let it happen. Enjoy it. Cry if the character cries, laugh if the character laughs, but deep down know that nothing is happening to you. This knowledge allows you to play. If you know it is a movie, you don't take it seriously. You don't get a heart attack when the villain appears. You say, a good twist in the plot. Most people are bad actors who think they are the role. They are playing Hamlet. and they actually kill themselves. Be a good actor. Play the role with total intensity, but when the curtain falls, wash off the makeup and go home. Your home is the silence. Your home is the witness. Now, as you develop this witnessing consciousness, you will notice something strange about language. We spoke of language before, but we must look at the grammar of the matrix. The language you speak hypnotizes you. You say, "I am angry." This is a linguistic error. It suggests that you equal sign anger, that your whole being has become anger. This is false. The correct statement is, anger is passing through me, or I perceive anger. Clouds are passing through the sky. The sky does not say, "I am cloud." The sky says, "There is a cloud." Start correcting your language. Even if you don't say it aloud, people might think you are crazy. Say it internally. Instead of "I am sad," say "sadness is present." Instead of "I am hungry," say "the body is signaling hunger." This small shift in grammar breaks the identification. It unplugs the wire. The matrix relies on the word "I." The I is the hook. Everything hangs on the I. I want, I need, I fear. But does this I really exist? If you look for it, you cannot find it. Close your eyes, look inside. Where is the I? Can you point to it? You will find thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, but you will not find an I. The I is just a thought that repeats itself so often it feels solid. It is like a spinning propeller. It looks like a solid disc, but it is just a moving blade. If you stop the propeller, the disc disappears. If you stop thinking, the ego disappears. And what remains? Amness. Not "I am this" or "I am that," just "I am." Pure existence. This "I am" is not personal, it is universal. My "I am" and your "I am" are the same "I am." We are different waves, but we are the same water. The matrix divides the waves, awareness reveals the water. When you rest in this "I am," you are plugged into the source. You are plugged into the cosmic generator. You have infinite energy. You don't need coffee to wake up. You don't need entertainment to feel alive. You are bursting with aliveness. This is the energy of the Buddha. This is the energy of the Christ, and it is available to you. It is your birthright, but you have sold your birthright for a mess of pottage. You have sold it for the cheap comforts of the matrix. Reclaim it. It is waiting for you just behind the veil of your thoughts. If you are ready to tear the veil and claim your cosmic inheritance, click join. Join the community of the awakened. Now we must address a very practical danger on this path. As you become a witness, as you detach, you might become indifferent. You might become cold. If it's just a movie, why should I help anyone? Why should I care if someone is suffering? This is a trap. The matrix sets this trap for the intelligent ones. It is the trap of cynicism or nihilism. Nothing matters, so I will do nothing. This is not the state of the witness. This is the state of the ego disguised as the witness. The ego says, "I am separate, I don't care." The true witness says, "I am everything, therefore I care." When you truly unplug, you don't lose compassion, you find it because you see that the person suffering is you. You see that the blindness of the world is your blindness. Compassion means feeling with. The witness feels everything but is not drowned by it. You help the crying child not because it is a duty, but because the child is part of your own being. You help because it is a joy to bring light to darkness. Don't become a zombie. Don't become a stone Buddha. Be a laughing Buddha. Be a loving Buddha. Your detachment should create space for love, not a wall against it. Love is the fragrance of the witness. When the flower of awareness opens, the fragrance of love spreads. You cannot stop it. If you are aware but not loving, your awareness is false. It is just a mental gain. If you are loving but not aware, your love is false. It is just a biological attachment. True awareness and true love are two wings of the same bird. You need both to fly. The matrix clips both wings. It gives you logic instead of awareness, and attachment instead of love. Regrow your wings. How? By practice. We spoke of the right awareness. Now I give you the right loving. Look at a tree. Don't just analyze it. Love it. Feel a gratitude for its shade, for its oxygen, for its beauty. Look at a stranger. Send them a silent blessing. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. You don't have to say it. Just vibrate it. This invisible vibration changes the world more than any revolution. The matrix is a vibration of fear. You counter it with the vibration of love. You become a radiator of love. And when you radiate love, the matrix cannot tolerate you. It tries to expel you. Good, let it expel you. To be expelled by the matrix is to be welcomed by God. Don't try to fit in. I see so many of you trying to be normal mystics. You meditate in the morning. Then you put on your suit and try to act like a robot in the office so nobody suspects you. Don't hide. Let your light shine. If people think you are weird, let them. If you lose friends, let them go. They were friends of your mask, not friends of you. As you unplug, your social circle will change. The unconscious people will fall away. They will feel uncomfortable around your silence. But new people will come. The conscious ones will find you. Like attracts like. You will form a sangha, a community of truth. This channel is a sangha. We are gathering not to gossip, but to wake up. If you value this sangha, if you value this connection, ensure you are subscribed. Do not lose the thread. Now let us look at the concept of goallessness again, but deeper. The matrix runs on goals, the future. I want to introduce you to the beauty of the step, not the destination, but the step. The matrix says, look at the mountaintop. That is where you must go. So you look at the top and you trip over the stone in front of you. You are so focused on the future that you miss the present. I say, forget the mountaintop, look at your feet. Look at this step. If you take this step with total awareness, the next step will arise from it naturally. Life is a series of steps. If you take care of the step, the destination will take care of itself. In fact, the step is the destination, because you can only ever be here. You can never be there. When you get there, it becomes here. So if you don't know how to live here, you will never live. You will arrive at the peak of Everest, and you will be miserable, thinking about how to get down. Learn to enjoy the walking. Learn to enjoy the struggle. Learn to enjoy the breathing. This is unplugging from the outcome. The matrix controls you by the outcome. If you do this, you get a reward. If you fail, you get punished. The rebel says, I don't care about the reward. I do this because I love doing it. If you paint, paint because you love color, not because you want to sell the painting. If you sing, sing because your heart wants to sing, not to get applause. When the action is for itself, it is pure, it is divine. And ironically, when you work this way, success often follows because you are putting your whole soul into it. But that success is just a byproduct, not the goal. The ebooks I have mentioned are not goals, they are lanterns for your steps. They help you see where you are placing your feet. Use them to navigate the pathless path. We are coming to a point where the mind starts to rebel. It says, this is too much. I can't be aware all the time. I can't be a witness all the time. It is exhausting. Yes, it is exhausting for the ego. The ego loves sleep. Awareness is hard work for the ego. But for the soul, awareness is rest. You feel exhausted because you are still fighting. You are trying to force awareness. Don't force, relax into it. If you forget to be aware, don't judge yourself. Don't say, I am bad, I forgot. Just say, I forgot, and come back. In the moment you realize you forgot, you are already back. It is a game of hide and seek. You hide in thoughts, you find yourself in silence. You hide, you find, playfully. Slowly the moments of remembering will become longer, and the moments of forgetting will become shorter. One day the balance flips. Awareness becomes the background of your life, and thinking becomes the occasional visitor. That day is the day of liberation. But before that day, you must face the dragon at the gate. The dragon is the collective unconscious. It is the weight of millions of years of human stupidity. When you try to wake up, you are not just fighting your own sleep, you are fighting the sleep of the whole humanity. Gravity is pulling you down. Don't fly, stay here in the mud with us. You need escape velocity. In physics, a rocket needs a tremendous burst of energy to leave the atmosphere. Once it is in space, it floats effortlessly, but the takeoff requires fire. This talk is your fire. This practice is your fuel. You must burn with a desire for freedom. If your desire for freedom is lukewarm, maybe I'll wake up on the weekend, gravity will win. Your desire must be a roaring flame. I want truth more than I want life itself. Only this intensity can break the gravitational pull of the matrix. Where does this intensity come from? It comes from suffering. Look at your suffering. Look at your anxiety. Look at your emptiness. Are you not tired of it? Are you not bored of the same old cage? Let your suffering become your fuel. Say, I have had enough. I am done with begging. I am done with sleeping. Use the pain of the past to propel you into the freedom of the present. Turn the poison into medicine. The matrix creates suffering, but it accidentally creates the seed of its own destruction. Because if you suffer enough, you will eventually wake up. The happy slave never rebels. It is the miserable slave who seeks freedom. So bless your misery. It is your wake-up call. The alarm clock is ringing. It is loud, it is annoying. Don't hit the snooze button. Get up. In the next part, we will discuss the new man. What happens after you escape? Who do you become? We will paint the portrait of the liberated human being, the one who is unplugged but fully plugged into life. We will talk about the celebration of existence, because freedom is not just freedom from, it is freedom for creativity, freedom for love, freedom for dance. The door is open. The sky is waiting. Don't look back at the cage. Spread your wings. Freedom is not just freedom from, it is freedom for. Freedom from is negative. It is political. It is merely the absence of chains. You have escaped the prison. You have cut the wires. You have silenced the judge. The cage door is open. But what now? A prisoner who walks out of the jail and just stands there is not truly free. He is just unemployed. He has lost his old routine, his old security, and now he is staring at a terrifyingly open sky. Many people run back to the cage because the open sky gives them vertigo. They don't know what to do with the vastness. Freedom 4 is positive. It is creative. It is the freedom to dance, to paint, to love, to sing, to be. It is not enough to say no to the matrix. You must eventually say yes to existence. This brings us to the birth of the new man. I want to paint a portrait of this new man for you. He is the goal of our rebellion. He is not the saint of the old religions. The saint was against the body. The saint starved himself, whipped himself, denied his sex, denied his laughter. The saint was dry, dead, a desert. He is not the sinner of the marketplace. The sinner is obsessed with the body, obsessed with greed, lost in the material. The new man is a synthesis. He is Zorba the Buddha. He is as earthly as Zorba the Greek. He plays the guitar, he drinks wine, he dances on the beach, he loves women, he enjoys the food, he respects the earth, he knows that matter is the mother, and he is as spiritual as the Buddha. He can sit in absolute silence. He can dissolve into the void. He knows the stars. He knows that consciousness is the Father. The new man is not schizophrenic. He does not choose. He accepts both wings. Because if you cut off the earthly wing, you cannot fly. You become a ghost. If you cut off the spiritual wing, you cannot fly. You become a rock. The new man is whole. To understand this evolution, you must understand the three metamorphoses of the spirit. Nietzsche spoke of this, and it is the perfect map for your unplugging. The first stage is the camel. The camel is the beast of burden. It carries the load. It kneels down and says, "Put more weight on me." The camel wants to obey. It wants to be told what to do. It says yes to every command of the society. Be a doctor, yes. Believe in this God, yes. Hate this enemy, yes. Most of humanity is at the camel stage. They are heavy, loaded, serious, and asleep. They are wandering in the desert of the matrix. They are useful to the masters, but they have no soul of their own. Then if the spirit is strong, the camel goes into the lonely desert and transforms into the lion. The lion is the rebellious spirit. The lion wants to be free. The lion kills the dragon of thou shalt. The dragon is covered in gold scales, and on every scale is written, "Thou shalt." You must do this. The lion roars, "I will." The lion says, "No." This is the stage of unplugging. This is where you are right now. You are finding your roar. You are rejecting the load. You are biting the hand that feeds you the lies. This stage is necessary. You cannot skip it. You must become a lion. You must have the courage to stand alone and say no to the church, no to the state, no to the tradition. It is a warrior stage. It is fiery. It is beautiful. If you feel the lion awakening in your chest, if you are ready to roar against the dragon of expectations, click the like button. Let it be your first roar. But the lion is not the end. The lion is still defined by the enemy. He is fighting against something. He is still reactive. He is freedom from. If you stay a lion, you become bitter. You become an angry revolutionary. You are free, but you are not happy. You have destroyed the old, but you have not created the new. So the ultimate transformation must happen. The lion must become the child. This seems like a step backward. but it is the highest peak. Why the child? Because the child is innocence. The child is forgetfulness. The child is a new beginning, a game, a self-rolling wheel, a first movement, a holy yes. The camel said yes to others. The lion said no to others. The child says yes to himself, yes to life. The child plays. He builds sand castles on the beach. He knows the tide will come and wash them away, but he does not cry. He enjoys the building, and when they are destroyed, he laughs and dances and starts building again. He is not serious, he is playful. This is the new man. He lives in the matrix, but he plays with it. He builds businesses, he paints pictures, he loves people, knowing fully well that death will wash it all away. But because he knows it is temporary, he enjoys it more. The impermanence makes it precious. The matrix wants you to be a camel. The matrix fears the lion. But the matrix is defenseless against the child, because you cannot control someone who is just playing. You cannot threaten someone who is laughing. If you put a gun to the head of the child man, he will smile and say, is this part of the game? Are we playing death now? Okay, let's play. You cannot instill fear in him, because he has regained his innocence. How to become the child? You must drop the seriousness. Look at the religious people, the priests, the bishops, the mullahs. They are so long-faced. They look like they are in constant pain. They think seriousness is holiness. I say seriousness is a disease. Seriousness is the cancer of the soul. Existence is not serious. Look at a giraffe. Can you look at a giraffe and think God is serious? God has a sense of humor. Look at a parrot. Look at a platypus. Existence is full of jokes. If you cannot laugh, you cannot pray. Laughter is the only prayer that reaches God, because God is joy, Satchitananda, truth, consciousness, bliss, not truth, consciousness, seriousness. So bring more laughter into your life. If you make a mistake, laugh. If you fall down, laugh. If you get angry, look in the mirror and see how ridiculous you look with your red face and bulging eyes. Laugh at the cartoon character you have become. Laughter breaks the ego. The ego cannot exist in a belly laugh. This brings us to the concept of celebration. The old religions taught you renunciation, give up the world. The world is a trap. I teach you celebration. Enjoy the world. The world is a temple. Don't run away. If you run away, you are a coward, and a coward cannot find truth. Stay here. Dig your feet into the earth. Drink the juice of life. Squeeze every moment dry. When you celebrate, you are high on energy. You are vibrating, and low energy vibrations, fear, anger, guilt, cannot enter a high energy field. Celebration is your shield. When you dance, really dance, the dancer disappears, and only the dance remains. That moment is meditation. You don't need to sit with closed eyes to meditate, though that is one way. You can meditate while running, while swimming, while making love. Any action done with total intensity where the ego disappears is meditation. The matrix hates intensity. It wants you lukewarm. It wants you to be a part-time lover, a part-time worker, a part-time liver. I want you to burn your candle at both ends. Yes, you may burn out faster, but you will give a brilliant light. Better to be a short-lived flame than a long-lived smoke. If you are ready to burn with intensity to turn your life into a festival, support this work with a super thanks. help us spread the fire. Now let's talk about creativity. The new man is a creator. The camel produces, the lion destroys. The child creates. Productivity is economic. Creativity is existential. You don't have to be a Picasso or a Mozart to be creative. Creativity is an attitude. If you sweep the floor with love, if you arrange the flowers on the table with an artistic eye, if you dress with care, you are creative. You are bringing beauty into the world. The matrix is ugly. Have you noticed? Look at the cities. Concrete, grey steel billboards. It is functional, but it is ugly. It depresses the soul. Beauty is nutrition for the soul. Unplugging means surrounding yourself with beauty. It doesn't require money. A single flower in a glass jar is more beautiful than a diamond in a safe. The moon in the night sky is free. Reclaim your aesthetic sense. When you create beauty, you participate in God's work. God is the ultimate creator. When you create, you are closest to Him. And finally, the crowning jewel of the new man, love, but not the love you know, not the sticky, possessive, jealous love of the camel. The camel loves because he needs. I love you because you carry my burdens. The lion struggles with love because he is too independent. He is afraid of being tied down. The child loves because he overflows. He does not need you to love him back. This is a high state. Love is a gift, not a bargain. If you love someone, you are happy just to give. You don't look at them and say, I gave you love, now where is my return? That is business. That is the marketplace. Love is not a business. The flower gives its perfume to the wind. It does not ask, will the wind pay me? It gives because it is full. It has to give. If it doesn't give, the perfume will become rotten inside. You must give your love. You must share your being, not to get something, but to unburden yourself of your own richness. This kind of love is freedom. If I love you to get something, I am a slave to you. I have to be nice to you. I have to manipulate you, so you will give me what I want. If I love you just to share my joy, I am a king. I don't need anything from you. If you accept my love, good. If you reject it, good. I enjoyed the giving. This unplugs you from the heartache of relationships. You cannot be heartbroken if you expect nothing. You can only be heartbroken if you were trading and the trade went wrong. The new man relates, but he does not create a relationship. Relationship is a noun. It is a dead thing. We are in a relationship. It is a box. Relating is a verb. It is a flow. Today we relate. Tomorrow, who knows? The new man lives with this openness. He does not close the future with a promise. I will love you forever. How can you say that? You don't know who you will be tomorrow. You are a liar. The new man says, I love you in this moment, totally, absolutely. And I don't know about tomorrow. This is honesty. This is truth. And strangely, when you drop the forever, the love often lasts longer because there is no cage. Love stays only where there is freedom. We are nearing the end of our journey together. But in a way, we are just beginning. The path of the new man is pathless. There are no maps, only footprints of those who walked before. I have shown you the footprints. I have shown you the prison. I have shown you the door. I have shown you the sky. But I cannot fly for you. You must flap your own wings. In the final part of this transmission, I will give you the last secret. the secret of integrating this new awareness into the very center of your daily life so that you never fall asleep again, we will lock the door of the prison from the outside. Ensure you are subscribed. You do not want to miss the final key. And if these words have been a wind beneath your wings, check the ebooks. They are lessons in flying. Prepare for the final ascent. In the final part of this transmission, I will give you the last secret, the secret of integrating this new awareness into the very center of your daily life so that you never fall asleep again. We will lock the door of the prison from the outside. You have walked a long way with me. We have dissected the mind, exposed the ego, silenced the judge, and awakened the witness. But there is one last trap the matrix sets for the seeker. It is the most subtle trap of all. It is the trap of seeking itself. The matrix tells you, okay, you want enlightenment? Fine, put it on your to-do list, work for it, struggle for it. Maybe in 20 years, maybe in the next life, you will get it. Do you see the trick? By making enlightenment a goal in the future, the matrix prevents you from being enlightened now. The last secret is this: you are already there. You are not a sinner trying to become a saint. You are not a sleeper trying to wake up. You are a Buddha pretending to be asleep. This is the cosmic joke. The fish is swimming in the ocean, asking every other fish, "Excuse me, where is the ocean?" The other fish say, "Keep swimming, brother. It is far away. You have to work hard to find it." You are the fish. The ocean is your own consciousness. You cannot find it because you are it. You cannot see your own eyes because you are looking with them. The moment you stop looking, you find it. The moment you stop struggling, you float. The matrix depends on your struggle. It depends on you feeling incomplete. I want you to feel complete right now. In this breath, in this heartbeat, there is nothing missing. The kingdom of God is not a place, it is a perspective. If you can accept this, that you are already the glory you have been seeking, then the search ends. And when the search ends, life begins. Real life is not a search, it is a celebration. You don't dance to get somewhere. You dance to express the joy of being here. So the final step of unplugging is to unplug from the future. Drop the spiritual ambition. Just be, sit in your chair and just be. Is anything missing in this moment? If you don't think about the past or the future, is there any problem right now? No, there is only silence, there is only peace. This peace is not a prize to be won. It is your nature. It is the ground you stand on. But you will ask, Osho, if I am already a Buddha, why do I feel like a mess? Why do I get angry? Why do I get sad? Because you have forgotten you are a king who has had amnesia. You think you are a beggar. You are acting like a beggar, but your blood is royal. My work is not to change you. My work is to remind you. This whole series of talks, these thousands of words, are just to shake you and say, hey, remember who you are. The moment you remember, the beggar psychology drops. The anger, the greed, the jealousy, they are not compatible with your royal nature. They fall away like old rags. So how do we keep this memory alive in a world that is constantly trying to make us forget? How do we maintain the royal dignity in the chaos of the marketplace? I give you the technique of the double arrow. Usually your attention is like a single arrow pointing out. You look at the car, the woman, the money, the screen. All your energy flows out. You become empty inside because you are leaking energy. The double arrow means while you look at the object, simultaneously keep some attention on the subject. Look at the flower, but also look at the one looking at the flower. Listen to the music, but also listen to the listener. Keep one arrow pointing out and one arrow pointing in. This creates a closed circuit of energy. You don't leak, you become a circle of light. You can do this anywhere. In a meeting, keep a part of your attention on your breath, on your inner center. Speak, but stay connected to the silence from where the words come. Act, but stay connected to the stillness from where the action arises. This is meditation in action. If you can master this simple knack, the matrix cannot touch you. You are in the world, but you are anchored in the self. But be warned, the world will try to pull you back. The matrix operates like a bucket of crabs. If one crab tries to climb out, the other crabs pull him back down. Where are you going? You think you are better than us? Come back and be miserable with us. Your friends, your family, your colleagues, they will sense your change. They will sense that you are no longer playing their games. You are no longer reacting to their dramas. They will try to provoke you. They will try to make you guilty. You have changed. You don't care about us anymore. Do not get angry at them. They are just acting out of their unconsciousness. Have compassion. They are afraid. They are losing a partner in their misery. But do not yield. Do not climb back into the bucket just to make the crabs happy. If you stay free, eventually they will look at you and say, "How is he so peaceful? How is he so happy?" And maybe, just maybe, they will ask you for a hand. Then you can help them. You can only help them from the outside. If you are in the bucket with them, you cannot help anyone. This is why the Sangha is important. The community, when you are a baby lion, you are vulnerable. The sheep can confuse you. They can convince you that you are a sheep. You need to be around other lions. You need an environment where your awakening is supported, mirrored, celebrated. This channel is your digital Sangha. We are creating a Buddha field, an energy field of awakening. Even across the internet, energy travels, intent travels. When thousands of us meditate together, when we inquire together, we create a wave that is stronger than the matrix. So stay close. Do not wander off into the wilderness alone until you are strong enough. Keep coming back to the fire. If you are not subscribed, you are standing out in the cold. Come in, sit by the fire. If you can, click join. Support the fire. The fire needs wood to burn. Your support is the wood. Now, I want to leave you with a final perspective on gratitude. Gratitude is the lock on the door. If you are complaining, the door to the prison opens and you walk right back in. Complaint is the language of the matrix. This is wrong, that is missing, I want more. Gratitude is the language of the kingdom. Thank you, this is enough, this is beautiful. When you are grateful, you cannot be miserable. Try it. Try to be grateful and miserable at the same time. It is impossible. Gratitude shifts your frequency immediately. Be grateful for the breath. Be grateful for the sun. Be grateful for the challenges that make you grow. Be grateful even for the matrix, because without the resistance of the matrix, you could not develop the muscles of your soul. The matrix is the gym. It is heavy, it is sweaty, it is hard, but it makes you strong. Thank the matrix for the workout and then walk out of the gym. And what will you do when you walk out? You will laugh. the sign of the ultimate awakening, is laughter. You will look back at your struggles, your worries, your serious problems, and you will see how funny they were. You were afraid of a rope, thinking it was a snake. You were fighting a shadow. You were running on a treadmill, thinking you were going somewhere. It is hilarious. When you hear the laughter of the Buddhas, you know you are home. God is not serious. God is the ultimate comedian. He has created this vast, absurd, beautiful play for His own entertainment. Join the play. Don't be the audience, be the actor, be the dancer. But know that it is a play. If you know it is a play, you can play the king or the beggar with equal joy. It doesn't matter. The role is not you. I have given you the maps. I have given you the keys. I have shown you the lion's roar. I have shown you the child's play. I have shown you the witness. I have shown you the silence. Now the rest is up to you. You have to take the step. And remember, it is not a long journey. It is a single step, from the head to the heart, from the past to the present, from the ego to the self. One step. Take it now. As I end this talk, do not rush to the next video. Do not rush to the comments. Sit for a moment, just 1 minute. Let the words settle. Let the energy sink in. Feel the silence that is underneath my voice. That silence is the real message. The words are just containers. The content is the silence. Drink it, and if you want to keep drinking, if you want to explore the deeper geographies of your own being, I have prepared the e-books for you. They are in the description. They are love letters to your soul. Read them slowly. Read them not with your mind, but with your heart. I invite you one last time to be a part of this movement. Click join. Become a patron of consciousness. Send a super thanks as a gesture of energy exchange. Subscribe to ensure you are always plugged into the source, not the matrix. The door is open, the sky is vast. You have wings. Why are you crawling? Fly, fly high. And remember, you are the light. Be a light unto yourself. Apodipo Baba.